stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for your patience while we finish our communication. Are there any changes to the agenda today? And seeing none, we will move on to our public comments first session. We'll put the policy up on the screen there. We will hold our public session for 15 minutes for the beginning and then 15 minutes toward the end. We'll invite the public present to speak first if they choose, and then the public online to speak should they choose. And is there anyone who would like to start conversation here?
Yay, Kathy.
So can you just make sure you give us your name and your town of residence?
Kathy Kozlowski, Ringe. I would just like to thank the board and Duncan for facilitating the Fair Funding project. I think it was a very, very informative presentation, and I appreciate your role in making it happen.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the public viewing wish to speak for now? Okay, anybody online? Okay, good. So we will go on to our student representative report.
I wish I had something like bigger to present, but so far what I've seen at our school is there's a marginally larger amount of students with like a more active school spirit, and they're engaging themselves in the community more. It's not something I used to see, and now recently I'm starting to see a lot more. I'm not sure if it's because we have more like extracurriculars or great engagement in our extracurriculars, but it's looking good right now.
That's really exciting to hear. Thank you. Good. Very good. Spirit is important. How was homecoming? Anybody? Did you go?
Yeah, I helped run it. We made quite a bit of money off of it. I think we made altogether for the whole day, I think it was 2,800, somewhere around that margin. And a lot of people liked the dance. They said they liked the dance, and selling concessions went well at the games.
Okay. What kind of things does that money go to?
Our graduating class, since the juniors ran it, all the money goes towards our junior class. So things for the juniors, like our senior class trip and our cap and gowns.
Very cool. Very cool. That's a great way to offset those costs there. I see. Very cool. Thank you. Anybody else have questions or comments?
No question. Just so we can get to know you a little bit better, what sort of activities do you take part in, extracurriculars and stuff?
I am the junior class president, and I also started up a new club. It's called the Forum. It's like a mixture of a bunch of intellectual like activities, and I wanted to create it so I could introduce an intellectual based community.
Excellent.
Awesome. And for the public that might not know, this is Dante.
Nice to meet you.
You are student representative. Dante's our junior.
Yeah, I'll just say one more thing that I think is within the past couple of years that I've seen. I think at the middle school level, and to me, this is the result of the combination of the schools. There's now like that's smaller. Basically, it takes nothing to do. They just schedule a whole bunch of games on the Friday night at the same place. So it allows, I think, that school spirit for the middle school too, because usually, everyone's scattered. We call it homecoming. It's everyone's there at the same time. I think I saw Ruben there. I saw a lot of I think what I was impressed with was the amount of staff that was there, right? Watching. I think that, to me, says a lot, right? You schedule that, it's a Friday night. And there's a good deal of staff there cheering on their, the students, which is pretty cool. Again, easy to do, costs nothing, raises money, and contributes to that positive culture of the school. So I think that's the second year we've had it, and it's been a big success.
Now on Saturday, quite a few college students returning, which is also a good sense of pride, right? And go to the games is amazing.
All right, wonderful. Then on to the superintendent's report.
So we're entering that season. We kind of never leave it, so it's the idea of budget season. This was a slide from last superintendent report where we talked about the cost centers were all starting their budgeting. We talked about, and I never changed that 2027-28 item, but the math curriculum, as we were originally going to be putting that forward into the budget this coming year, we are going to take a different approach and hold off for a couple of years for that. So, because anytime you do a curriculum adoption, it's a heavy cost, as we know with our ELA Wit and Wisdom. We are going to work on, we're currently starting to work on a plan for how to proceed with that. And that will be, we do know that professional development is going to be a significant part to it for the second part of this year and then all of next year. And that most likely can be paid out through Title II funds. So those are federal funds set aside for professional development that doesn't impact the tax rate. And so in preparation, we will do that, make sure everyone's prepared and has the knowledge they need in order to choose the best approach going down in the future. And the school board will be presented with, material and updates as we go along with that process. The ELA curriculum will need to be considered for next year, and just the ongoing, workbooks and things of that nature. Revised Ed 306, the minimum standards. Again, at some point we are going to have a presentation on some of the changes. There were some significant changes in the minimum standards, and some of that will impact budget and scheduling. So we're still working on that, how best to balance everything there. The school district is well positioned to handle all the new changes from the Ed 306s, which mandates competency-based curriculum, competency-based education, and so forth. We've been on that journey for many years, where we are probably the leaders in the entire region of the state. I know that other schools have been calling us to ask for support, and I know that we're going to be visiting some of them to help give them some support as to how to make those changes. Those are not quick changes, so as we are aware, we've gone through many years of that type of work, but we are positioned well, and better than most throughout the state to make those changes. That being said, there are some challenges. And then we talked about talking more about future direction of the school as we budget. So budget conversations, just really quickly, next time we have a school board meeting, we're going to have our first budget presentation from the schools. We're certainly going to be, you'll see that there will be curriculum included in that for the third year of the Wit and Wisdom implementation, kindergarten or preschool, actually through grade 8. We'll have some staffing conversations, except that those conversations, depending on what the board's conversations are around future and goals and things like that, that's going to impact that. So we'll have to wait and see a little bit. We're kind of holding off on that. Summer programming, field trips, will those be in the budget? Those are conversations that still have yet to be had. Student services, as of last week, when we met, it looks like this actually might be a year where we can level fund that. That's very rare that takes place. But because of some of the work that we've done in the elementary schools with our programming, and also some situations that some out of district placements that might be ending, might provide us a situation where we will, in our default budget and in the proposed budget, be looking at something that would be level funded, which in the world of budgeting for, education and everything, all prices going up all the time, is like a decrease, basically. Technology, we will have to grapple with the Chromebook replacement cycle. This is something that we've agreed to. This is what we want. We need to do this every single year. We know what happens when we don't do it. We are not interested in having those challenges again. Anything that goes into that fourth year of technology just appears to not work the same. And certainly testing modules with the state and so forth rely upon us having up-to-date systems. And so we're going to have to put that into the budget. In the past year or two, 3 perhaps, we've been able to pre-purchase those. That is not something we are positioned to do this year. We have to look at some copiers. We've identified a couple that are well past their life, and I should say they're still working because we have contracts with the companies to repair them. Getting parts for them is difficult at this point in time. They're certainly not efficient. And then just infrastructure, we're doing a little more research on servers and other forms of infrastructure just to make sure that we are budgeting appropriately for that.
Servers.
Mhm.
The infrastructure is.
Yeah, so, yeah. Other conversations with the budget, the SAU. We have had conversations about how the structure of the SAU should be. Right now, we know that the SAU is understaffed, that we are going this year without a facilities director. We have no other facilities support in the SAU. That would be myself and Carrie and Kristen working together to keep us moving forward. We don't have an assistant superintendent. We are the only district in the region to be in that situation. We haven't had one for a while, but we also don't have a curriculum director either. That is also something that is usually, if you have assistant superintendent, sometimes you have a curriculum director, but one or the other usually happens. I've been filling those roles for a while. And as we go into the future, it would be wise for the school board to consider how the structures are going to be. We've been able to save obviously a lot of money over the years, but I would say we're at a point where it's not in even close to a sustainable model. So we have to think about that. Facilities. The question, this is not about the budget necessarily, but other warrant articles. Do we create a warrant article for further funding to the trust fund? I'll talk about something like about the facilities in a second relative to the trust fund. So you'll have more context for that. Default budget still in progress. Carrie's actually working on that as we speak. But we do know that the default budget includes all the legally required items, including healthcare increases. And we've had that conversation around healthcare, put that information out to the entire community about the school care and its challenges and our obligations. We know that after our last board meeting, we were able to take care of some of that debt, but we'll need to likely put the rest of it into the default budget, which it is a mandated cost. And we are also looking at and following carefully school care's increases in healthcare in general. I have another slide on that. And then we know that the default budget will exclude the majority of anything that has to do with athletics, co-curriculars. There was some left in there for co-curriculars, full day 4-year-old pre-K. So that's 8 positions, 1 French teacher, 1 other teaching position. We originally talked about the music teacher, but the music teacher, when that person went to take another job, we discontinued that position here after looking at some ways we could maneuver some courses in this area, and we were able to have the librarian stay, the library media specialist stay in the elementary schools, which was helpful because we reduced the budget and got rid of the technology teachers. Interestingly enough, in the Ed 306s that just came out, we now have now we have some needs in that area. So those things change. We have to look at school administration, SAU directors, et cetera. Those are all excluded from the default budget. Nevertheless, there are going to be increases due to the third year of the JREA contract. We've discussed that's roughly in the range of 570 to 590, around there, thousand. That will go in there, plus any healthcare increases of the collecting bargaining unit. Those will be included, and those are the main ones that I would.
Middle school STEM's on in too.
That might be another teacher, middle school STEM teacher. Yep, we've removed. Healthcare expenses update. Last time we talked about numbers. School Care is going to provide us with the rates on November 10th. So not at our next board meeting, but you'll have it for the board meeting afterwards. But Carrie texted me. She was at a meeting with School Care today, and they actually increased what they said their average rate of increase would be. It was 16% the last time I talked to you. Now it's 17.5%, with the low being 8% and the high being 35%. So we'll find out where we are in that world. I will say our history here has not tended to put us into the higher spot. There have been some years where we've been at the very low, and some years we've been at that average. And so early indications would suggest that we're going to be closer to that average range, maybe a little bit lower, but we don't have a definite answer on that one right now. That's what we can get for information. If it were at that 35%, that would be like a $1.2 million increase right there. So that is not something that we would want to see. Facilities work, we talked about a meeting that we had with the Cape and Island Tennis and Track Company last time, and we did meet with them, and they did get us the quotes, and it did come in quite a bit under what we had originally thought. So we a couple years ago, we had a study done with Gale and Associates. They had come after a group of people from the community and said, we need to improve our facilities as it pertains to athletics, and we have a long way to go. So we had a relatively extensive audit and study of what we were doing, and many suggestions. Our track, however, is one of those items that when it was built, tracks have specific lifespans. And so if you're going to keep your track or you're going to maintain your track, which we have been maintaining it over the years, imperfectly. When I first got here, again, the track actually hadn't been maintained, and they ended up losing the contract for the statewide meet, but we were able to fix that at that point in time. And Cape and Island, who did put the original track in, also, we were able to get them to come in and for a reasonable amount to recoat the entire surface. But we are at that spot where that was 9 years ago. Our track, if you were to walk it right now, you would see that the surface needs to be redone. Now, we have some choices with that. Gale and Associates says because of the age of it, it is time to smash it up and redo it. When Cape and Island Tennis came, they surveyed the area and did not see any evidence of cracking, any evidence of bubbling, anything that would suggest that the foundation was poor in any way, and did not feel. They actually felt it would be poor. It would be a poor choice to destroy a good foundation. So there's some work that does have to be done. They can't just recoat it. It won't stick. It will bubble within a year because of how because it just won't adhere to the surface the way it is. And so they have to put another layer of surface on top of that one, and rather than it being around 650 to 750 to 780 round, that was the estimate from Galen Associates. They've quoted us about 475, 474 and some change, but 475 to do that track to replace it. They did also give us another roughly $110,000 option to increase the quality, which quality I'm going to define as longevity and performance. We would need to talk and up to them about that, but I know in our facilities committee, we were saying, okay, we know that it takes about 100,000 to resurface it in 8 years after you've put a new surface down. So is longevity, does it mean that it's going to preserve the foundation more, foundation longer? We don't know. We got to find out what that is. That being said, we have a lot of competing interests. And so this is a need to do. We need to maintain and to improve where we're at. This is not, I mean, it will improve it because quality of what is being put down for tracks is better than it used to be, but it is more of an in-kind type of approach. And so it's just doing what we are responsible for doing. And it is the place that is used by the community the most, I would say, when you consider a year-round area. And I think that what I would want is permission from the board to go use some of our money from our facilities trust fund. We have a total of around 600. Well, okay, it was 696 prior to the $40,000 motion that you made last week or last 2 weeks ago for all of the repairs or the new stairs and new ramps, the ramps out here, to make sure that those are all safe and they're in good shape and also ADA compliant. So we have the money to do that, and we also know that we have competing interests, like I said, with windows. We have competing interests with needing to replace certain doors. I think the facilities committee right now would likely not suggest moving forward with the 110. But does feel that the 475, that piece right there would be good. By being part of this Omnia Partnership Purchasing Cooperative, they do all the bidding. They have all the bids, so we are getting the best pricing here. That satisfies our policies on bids. And they are also the people that, I mean, there aren't many of these companies around, but they are the individuals who put it in and know our system here. They're knowledgeable about what we have. And they are right now, they have availability in mid-May of 2026 to start this. And so that's something that I would ask. And I talked about window replacement. And that's just some finances around budgeting, warrant articles, and ongoing work. And we're moving forward with a lot of, even though we don't have a facilities director, we're continuing to do what we need to do. And we have been able to also some neat things, something educationally speaking for people who are excited about the educational improvement relative to facilities. We were able to have more electricity put into, or electrical capacity put into one of our art rooms. And we had a kiln from last year that we wanted to put in, but couldn't do it without doing this upgrade. And so that is being put in. So we're excited about that.
All right, that was a lot of information. There's a lot of pieces. So as we do questions and comments from the board, we'll ask Ruben to go back to certain slides. Who would like to begin? Anybody have questions or comments? Yep, John.
In addition to all the things that you covered, Ruben, I'm just wondering if there's anything from the Kidder Law Conference that's worth mentioning to us.
I like to be nice about the Kidder Law Conference. It's a good law conference every single year. I did not think it was as helpful this year. There was important information from our attorney Gordon Graham talking about our some obligations that we have when creating the voting templates and also the town reports, just reports that we have to provide. But we knew that. He just reiterated some of the just making sure that we all knew. There was information on school funding, law courses, law cases and so forth in New Hampshire. These were not, I usually I find out a fair number of things that I had not spent time reading and working on as deeply, and this one was not as helpful, I don't think. I think our board is up to speed.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Sure. I know we talked about the track before.
Mhm.
To me, it looks like a great option. Is for those that don't know, I've helped out with the middle school track team the last 3 years, so I can vouch for that condition of the track. It's pitted in many places. It's been patched up, but it's really not suitable for any sort of big meets. Also can say that there's almost always people down there walking on it. So it is to me something that is a benefit to the larger community. And I guess I'll just ask the question. I know that like besides just the track, which has an end of life, there's also high jump mat and a pole vault mat, which are both basically unusable. And I'm not, I'm one for squeezing every last minute out of it, but those are probably about 3 to 4 years past their usable life. If we're going to get that facility back to like a working facility, it's probably another $30,000 for those two items. They are expensive. Maybe they can be cheaper. I don't know if that would be something that we'd consider addressing in that or separately, but I'll just be honest, like those two pieces of equipment are a bit of an embarrassment.
I did. So yeah, I did ask the company for a quote on those. They do need to be replaced. They have to be.
It's a
are going to work on storing them, which is a challenge of storing something that large anyway with our limited storage. But we do have a location I think we can. We'll be working on that within the next week or so. And then, but I did ask for a quote on that. They are expensive. They probably are in the tune of 30 or so thousand, but also as we were doing that audit of the area or the survey of the area, they recommended that we also, when all this happens and everything opens up, getting the fence company to come in and where that pole vaulting space is, making sure that there's 12 feet of clearance on all sides. So for instance, yes, you expect if you pole vault to go straight, go over and everyone's okay, but there is a possibility of them going one way or the other, and where the fence is right now, it is you would land either on the fence or, certainly you would have some difficulties if it went, if it didn't go well.
Yeah.
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 So
Just
there's more to.
Yeah. Point being,
Yeah.
we'd want to be able to look at the whole thing, right? Because having
Yeah.
a great track is good, but then at least want to know what the cost.
The equipment's absolutely essential. You can't keep on going with what you have. Yep.
The problem is that everything's essential, like the one.
Yeah, no, that's why I'm
not
not saying this is a priority over other educational things. I'm just saying, if we're looking at it, let's understand the whole picture and then make the decision.
Well, and it's a budgetary conversation around even putting athletics and co-curriculars in the budget, right? So that's not in the default budget, and so we have to make some decisions around that, or all good parts of the conversation this year. If the board did want to go forward with the track and to schedule that work and get it going, I would just need to have the board make a motion to award the work to Cape and Island Tennis and Track in a not to exceed amount and allow me to enter into a contract.
Any other input?
I'd just say that we, as a facilities committee, to discuss this for quite a bit of time and agreed that this is a stitch in time where a very good part of our infrastructure, and we don't have that many really good parts, that this is the time to save that and to preserve it for the future. Kind of like our tennis track, our tennis courts, you know, in the past, we've had to deal with them.
Mhm.
They're both very valuable pieces of our facilities, and if we let them degrade, then we'll lose them.
And these are, as we stated earlier, these are areas that are highly used by our community, whether it's walking groups or Franklin Pierce using the track.
Mhm.
Families walking or playing tennis or pickleball in the summer. I mean, it's a well-used facility.
And if you read this up here, I use the word donations as well. Certainly, I think we need to do the sure thing and shore it up with a maintenance trust fund. That being said, we would, if we are allowed to go through and do this work and plan it, we would start to educate the community on this and give them opportunity if they would so choose to donate to this effort, which would allow us not to have to delve into the trust fund. That's why a motion to not exceed would be the way to go. So you could do less, for instance.
And less means more windows.
And and then we can spend it on Windows. That's correct. And
So.
there's lots of reasons for that.
So that's where my concern. So with the window, and you mentioned doors that are not here. I do remember years ago, John showing us pictures of doors that I hope are fixed since. But that seems like it is a security issue. So is that the case with what you're talking about here? Like, is there an actual security issue that these need to be replaced with?
Okay, so safety, yeah. So safety and security has been the number one thing that we've been focusing on. And so there is, yes, John replaced a lot of doors, did a great job that way. So if you go to RMS, JGS, and in some cases here, the doors were put in. I mean, they were well past their lives, rusted out and so forth. It's super expensive to replace doors like that. Right now, and this is a budgetary conversation, you know, around pre-K and so forth, but the modulars over at RMS, there's a set of doors there that needs to be replaced. They won't be able to be fixed for long. And then the doors over here near the silo need to be replaced. Those are probably the most important ones to replace. The windows, I do think safety and security as it pertains to Jaffrey Grade School, yeah, where the school is positioned so low to the ground, where the rooms are actually underneath a little bit. You can get into them a little bit easier. We have actually had a break-in. Now, no damage, no internal damage to the school. Alarms work very well, but nonetheless, that did happen. I would say more importantly, they are just they're not energy efficient. They some of them are rotted, the sills and so forth, and so they are just shut. You know, so we keep them shut. Now we have a newish system for our HVAC, and keeping our windows shut is important most of the time, but sometimes you want to have your windows open. In a few of the rooms, we don't do that. In the case of emergency, they would have to, those are emergency exits where they are. We need to replace those definitely on the bottom floor. Ringe has a section as well. I would say their bottom floor as well. They're not quite overall as in bad shape as Jaffrey Grade Schools are. There is a section, however, at the front of RMS that is and needs to be redone. So we were talking about doing the difficult sections and maybe doing that year after year once we find the exact window that we're looking for. And I have specs on that. I've asked a specialist for what a school district would be able to best expect to put in there for a reasonable price, but also to capitalize on the energy savings of these HVAC units that we've put into our systems over the past few years using the ESSER funds and the extra money that the community allowed us to put forward for this building right here. Of course, in that process, probably more important than anything was the building of the infrastructure in this building, because there literally was no ductwork anywhere. And so that's now it's, if, you know, we can replace units if we ever needed to 15 years down the road.
Okay. And the second thing
Mhm.
before, could you go back to the staffing piece?
One.
So having conversations about staffing, do you want, then you said that November 3rd will be kind of talking about your ideas with this. Is this a good time for the board to give you some ideas of priorities for staffing that we would like to kind of see ideas included in, like options for these kind of things?
I definitely would like, I mean, honestly, having conversation tonight and having the board talk about what its desire is for how to staff the schools, meaning class size, would be important. You know, what they, I mean, we'll have a presentation tonight from the Kona Middle High School relative to culture and so forth. I know that this year in all the schools, there's definitely been some challenge. I would say probably the middle school, this is from my observation, middle school being perhaps the school that is having the most challenge due to the financial circumstances. And the cut that was made to the middle school section, it has locked everything up to be extraordinarily tight with no flexibility. And people are, it's been a challenge. And that's probably a mild way of saying it. That being said, there's some great stuff happening at the schools. So, and then the Ed 306s, I'll give you a couple examples on those. Business courses, so a business program needs to be put into place. So however that's done. And also computer science now is a mandated subject matter. If we're a little bit better off, and perhaps don't want to completely speak out of turn, we might have a little more capacity here at this school to know some of the technology elements of that. It would certainly require some things to fall in place. Elementary, I'm not sure if they have the capacity for that. That's a tough lift because we just got rid of the capacity for that. So.
Yeah, I guess when you say that locked up at the middle school level and lack of flexibility, I'm interpreting that to mean there aren't as many options for scheduling classes. I don't know. Can you, I guess, expand on what do you mean by that? Or maybe we can talk about it later.
I think we probably, to be more accurate, talk about it a little bit later. I would say that between class sizes, between that scheduling, trying to make sure that we are able to provide the legal and support for kids with IEPs and so forth. I think that's all a challenge.
Does anybody have any staffing they'd like to kind of throw out that they would like to see the admin kind of work through options on? I do. All right. So, something that Charlie and I had talked about for years, and I know Charlie's not here tonight, but, I don't think he'd mind me mentioning him in this, but, we've wanted for years an assistant superintendent, somebody that would help with, potentially, curriculum coordinating and, help us also helping with facilities work. But as Ruben mentioned, you know, as our upper admin are moving through the years, and this is something that we want to make sure gets in place so that as we have more fluctuation in our upper admin, that we have supports in place. And so that's something I would like to see thrown in the mix as what are the options we could work through with this. And definitely some middle school assistants would be great, adding, especially I guess in science, in those areas would really be helpful. But I do think that we should really be looking at an assistant superintendent position. for this coming year, somebody that can do multiple roles. Right now, I think Ruben's doing about 10, as communications coordinators and all kinds, like everything is falling in and just being piled onto everybody. And so I think, I'm hoping that a role like that could open up more possibilities. So that's something that I would like to see. Anybody else have anything to, John?
Well, one thing that's been discussed and we spent a good bit of time on it today was what's the appropriate facilities management team or facilities manager position that would allow us to better meet our needs. At present, we do have several staff members, but that includes Ruben and Carrie Shields, our business manager, along with Kristen Estagrosa. And it's a tough way to do it because it's taking time away from people who have other responsibilities that they might better spend time on. So that's another thing we need to look at.
Okay. Also on this page, I wanted to note, what a important three-word sentence, three-word phrase you put in there, Chromebook replacement cycle. I think it was 2 years ago. I don't think it was last year. It was 2 years ago. We had such an issue with Chromebooks and testing
3 years ago. Yep.
that I remember all of us sitting here saying, how is this going to affect our scores? There was such an issue with not having enough Chromebooks failing. It was wild. And it was right at the testing time, and it was right at a mandatory testing time. And I remember this constant, how are people going to make this up? How are kids going to make it up? How are we? And we all sat here and knew that this was going to affect our scores. It was one of those, one day, everything's relying on this one time. And so I can't, wow, that just put in my head that, wow, our test scores absolutely reflected this, didn't it? So, so yeah, let's keep on the Chromebook replacement cycle. It actually, if there's any one area that purely shows that testing can be a money issue, this is one.
And that was the year that the voters opted for the default budget.
Mm-hmm.
And so we opted to break the Chromebook replacement cycle.
Yep.
And I think we all secretly kicked ourselves and vowed to never do that again.
Yeah, we had very few options.
Yeah, just like this year.
Well, I think we were surprised that 3 years, having a something older than 3 years, and we had desktops work.
Yeah.
But it doesn't translate over to that type of technology.
Standards for the tests.
They did. They shifted that year. Yeah, the assessment has gotten, multiple changes have happened. It's gotten harder and harder every single year, the way that they've done it. But also the technology you have to have in order to do the assessment online, which it has to be done online, is key.
I had the scenario at Banana today where I'm teaching a class, and I had 4 kids' batteries just die. We swear we charged them. I was like, I believe you. And I'm watching them try to charge them, and they're not charging, just the batteries alone. So yeah, this is something that we absolutely have to keep up on. But what a pure way of seeing, this is what money does.
Yeah.
This is how.
Well, and it's how we use for instance, our Ames Web assessment as well. We talked about that. You saw the Ames Web assessment, which is the math and literacy and so forth. And that back in before 2015 and so forth, we had during the No Child Left Behind time, you had NECAP, which was the assessment. That assessment was, I would say, a much more skills-based assessment than what the current one is. And so Ames Web is a little more reflective of what it would be. You'd end up seeing yourself at 80 to 85% proficiency in those areas if you were just basing on skills assessments. The current assessment is a synthesis assessment. So it's take this skill, put them all together, and then really work at it, which is good. And I think that's great that those are the things that we're aspiring to and teaching kids to, think more critically and so forth, and that's important, but they are challenging. Yes, and on a computer.
All right, then go back to the, are we good? Go back to the, track then?
Actually, I'd like to add a little bit more into the whole Chromebook thing. I've heard personally from some students that they have issues with their keyboards.
Mhm.
I know personally someone who is missing their A key, and a few of them have like they're not sticky from like an external thing like soda or a vent, but they're just randomly kind of just sticky and won't press down. And some of them, like some Chromebooks, are getting a little slow as well.
Some of them take a very long time to turn on.
Yeah.
It's
They're gonna use,
4 minutes.
yeah, they, in that third year, it's. Yeah, so imagine we waited another year, the fourth year, well, that didn't go so well.
Sure, the letter A isn't in your vocabulary.
All right, so let's go to the, potential article, or potential vote here. All right. I will tell the board, I don't know if I should do this or not. I will just let the board know that I'm gonna vote no on this. I feel like the window and the door replacement, anything that has to do with actual physical safety, I would like done before this. As crucial as this is, I get it. I know that this is really important. I am not comfortable, and I really just kudos for even mentioning the windows, like you didn't have to. There's so many facilities, things that have to happen. I get that. If safety and security is an issue, I want that addressed first. So I just want the board to know that ahead, since I will be voting last, that I will be voting no to this.
Are you
Please,
going to set us up by telling us in advance?
well, I also didn't want it to be
A surprise.
I want it to be fair. Okay, I do. I need this to be fair. I'm not trying to sway the board. I simply want you to know that's
Sure.
I'm not in the facilities
I-
meeting, so I don't know the
I-
priorities as well.
I think it's worth noting that, we did discuss the windows. The reason why Ruben did bring that up is because one of our conditions was that there be at least some money to begin the window replacement. I think we talked about a minimum of $25,000 in addition to this $475 that would go to take care of the 4 most critical windows, with the understanding that the rest of them would be done on a replacement cycle.
And the facilities committee feels,
Yeah, I don't even
That's-
think we could replace all the windows in the time frame that we would need to spend this money. Because we haven't started the design process, we haven't started collecting bids. So if we could get the critical windows done this year and then move forward with design and bid, then, okay, maybe for next year. We've needed to do this for a long time.
thank you. I appreciate that, extra input, and that does sway me. I appreciate that.
Just a little bit more information is you'd be left with approximately 175 to 185 in the trust fund, which was why after this, if this were to be done, 4 other types of projects, but you can see how fast that is depleted. And so just, again, putting it on the radar for warrant articles. This is not going to be a year where we have likely there will be likely not have surplus. And if there is, I'm sure that the board would think about putting it into the healthcare situation. Yeah.
So is it appropriate to
So,
introduce a motion?
The motion would be to award the track surfacing work to CITT and direct the superintendent to use funds from the Building Maintenance Trust not to exceed $475,000. Is there a motion to?
And to authorize the superintendent to enter into the agreement.
And to authorize the superintendent to enter the agreement with CITT. I thought I'd supervise to authorize the use of the funds.
Authorize the use of the funds, but also to enter into the contract.
enter into the contract.
I have to sign, yeah.
Good.
I will make that motion.
All right, thank you, Christine. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, John. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstain? Vote passes 600.
Thank you.
All right, on to our next big ticket item. CMHS Culture and Climate Data Presentation.
Oh.
And before we begin, I will just do a quick reminder of, I know we haven't set our board standards for meetings in stone yet. We haven't voted on that yet, but just a reminder, when we have presentations, we are going to invite commentary during it or questions to keep a clean video for the public to be able to see and access very quickly in our meetings. There will be time for board response after this. Public response will only happen during public comment time.
Okay, so thank you for giving us the opportunity to do a presentation. We're presenting on some climate and culture updates for the middle high school as we kind of get into looking at some multi-tiered systems of support work and of course budget season and things like that. We always like to share where we're at and what our priorities are going forward. So I wanted to start just with, some updates on where the school is being kind of viewed externally. We don't seek out these sorts of ratings, but they are things that are important to note because these are not things that we're generating on our own. These are things that are generated by third parties that collect and aggregate data about public schools and then put out ratings. So I wanted to note that we have our highest rating by the U.S. News and World Report that we've had in several years. The only regional school that ranked higher than us by, I believe, one spot was Conval, and then our high school was next in line behind them. And as it notes, we're the #1 high school in this region of the state at this point in the Keene metro area. And then Great Schools Ratings, which compiles aggregate data and provides ratings for primarily real estate purposes, has rated our high school at a 9 out of 10 on their scale, noting that we are above average compared to other schools in New Hampshire with the same grade spans, and that is above all the other schools in the region. So again, these organizations compile graduation rates, post-secondary attainment, numbers of learners who take AP or college courses while in high school and pass exams related to those courses. Of course, they weigh in the standardized testing data, things like that. And I will, every chance I get this year, remind folks that the state has awarded our high school the School of Excellence designation for last year. Again, that was quite a grueling process that schools go through for that recognition. If you look through the list, there are several years with no secondary school winner in that category because nobody who put their name into the hat was deemed to be acceptable by the criteria this organization sets. The note on the right is from the organization through the state that does this. They noted that we have a flexible, challenging culture centered around student growth, an innovative proficiency-based model that empowers students to demonstrate masteries in ways that align with their strengths and goals, and on and on. So again, our school, despite, I think, a continued challenging environment, I know there were some comments perhaps made in a recent public forum implying that less than half of our kids can read when they graduate. Absurd. We continue to have high designations for how our school performs. And despite one single test being the SAT or in the middle school, the SAS, our kids at the aggregate of all of their data continue to impress us and do wonderful things, and our school continues to grow. So looking at school culture, there's different angles to look at this. One set of data that I typically present relates to behavioral types of data. This is a compilation of discipline data. This is noting the total number of office referral incidents that were submitted by staff in any given year. So you can see the first year was 2021 to 2022. There were 1,316 behavioral incidents that rose to the office referral level. You can see a quick decline in the 22 to 23 school year, a little bit of an uptick the following year, and then an overall decline for last year. Another piece that we look at is suspensions. Suspensions in or out of school can give some indication of the severity of the types of behaviors that we're seeing. Typically, we would only use out of school suspension for something that is a significant safety issue. a drug type of issue or repetitive behaviors where other interventions are not working. So out of school suspension is obviously the most significant intervention that we would use, in school suspension being the one just before that. And you can see here that the worst year for both suspensions was the 23 to 24 school year. We saw a significant increase, as you'll see when we look at some of the specific categories of behavior. That year we saw a large uptick primarily in bullying. You'll see that noted when we look at the report for major incidents, as well as some other categories that year, like some physical challenges that we had with unsafe behaviors and an uptick in some drug use and things like that. Drugs in our school means vaping, for lack of a better term, occasionally some marijuana and things like that. But we had an uptick that school year that we hadn't seen in previous years. So we spent a lot of last year focusing on bullying prevention, increasing awareness of how to spot and respond to bullying, as well as some drug intervention. So you'll see that in the data. And you can see that last year, the number of out-of-school suspension incidents, that's the number of behavioral times that we felt out-of-school suspension was necessary, dropped to 77 from the previous year's 178. And in-school suspension incidents dropped from 330 in the 23 to 24 school year down to 202 instances last year. And another good indicator to look at is the numbers of days where these types of interventions are used. Again, you can see that same spike in the 23 to 24 school year where we had, out of school suspension is the orange bar. You can see that even though there were less uses of out of school suspension that year, more days, which is a good indication that the incidents that earned that as the intervention required longer lengths of time perhaps than other incidents. And then again, a significant down spike in both in-school and out-of-school suspension days noted last year, reducing the out-of-school suspension by 200 days just about, and in-school suspension by about 120 days. So there's significant growth even noted last year based on some of the work that we had done and reflecting on this data from the 23-24 school year, which was a very tough year. This looks at major categories of behaviors that we noted, and the green bar is the 23 to 24 school year on each one of these. So again, if you kind of look across at some of those categories, that category of physical aggression, which is anything from shoving or things like that. We don't have, knock on wood, generally fights in our school. I can't remember the last time that we actually had a fight, but that could be, again, pushing, shoving, things like that. You can see a little spike in the unsafe behavior category, a large spike in the substantiated bullying. Substantiated, it means that there was an investigation done with evidence indicating that the reported behaviors occurred. That increased to 46 substantiated instances in the 23-24 school year, where you can see the previous 2 years were 6 and 5 respectively. So that was a huge jump, which required an entirely different focus on that coming into last school year, which did then result in a large downtick that we hope to and expect to see continuing. And you can also see under the vaping substances category, again, we had an uptick in the 23 to 24 school year and a slight downtick last year as we spent more focus on providing resources. We made a partnership with Youth Services in Keene to provide some smoking cessation and anti-use types of programming for learners. And we've had really good success with helping prevent repeat behaviors in that category for some individuals. We've seen a continued decline in some of the classroom disruptive types of categories like disrespect. That captures, obviously, learners being disrespectful with their language towards teachers or peers in the classroom or school. Continued downtick in that category. Disruption has seen significant drops, especially last year. That category dropped by almost half as we, again, continued to focus on some school-wide initiatives. Defiance had a really bad year in the 21-22 school year, which was that first kind of full post-COVID year. All of those categories had, close to their highest in that year, but a pretty steep drop in the subsequent years. So in these categories of significant behaviors, we've continued to see growth as we've invested time and energy in partnerships and programming to support kids. Last year, we also, again, because of that significant spike that we had seen in some of the behaviors, particularly at the middle school, a lot of those categories are actually heavier at the middle level than they are at the high school level. So we created a counter program called the Perch, which was a regulated classroom type of space to provide anchoring and behavior intervention. It aligns nicely with what the 2 elementary schools have for their regulated classroom or restorative classroom types of spaces. And we have a program already at the high school called Access that provided some of that service. We had a big gap at the middle school, so we reallocated positions to create this program. This was not any new positions that were added. And this became a space where learners could go for a short break, Some learners have regular check-ins here. You can see this is the aggregate visit log. So you can see where in the green bar the total visits spike. So that gives us some data and some time to kind of focus, knowing that we go into some parts of the year where more visits are happening. And we also can see the number of minutes per visit and the number of visits per day, which is helpful for comparing month to month. So again, we kind of get some good data from this, but it also explains how we were able to turn some of those really significant behaviors back into being more under control. And we have data supporting that some learners who had gotten to the level of that suspension category through access to this type of program were able to make better behavioral choices or get more anchoring support so that they were able to remain in the classroom without being disruptive or unsafe. So again, this program has a big impact that plays out in our data, and it's something that we're continuing to grow this year as we look at the next steps for implementation of that. And then this is another, so behavior is one category to look at. We also like to look at how our kids are doing as they progress through our school and how they leave us, essentially. And our hope is that we always have as close to 100% in the blue bar, which is the graduation rate in the 4-year graduation rate time span, as close to 100% as possible there. And the green line is the percentage of our learners who are leaving here and attending college within a year of leaving Conant High School. So this data, we were able to go as far back as the 2017-18 school year. That year was 84.5% of kids graduated and about 48% of kids attending college. So that would be firmly pre-COVID. Then you can see getting into that COVID year, we had about 90% of our kids graduate and about half of them moved on to college. And then we've invested a significant focus as a school culture, both in supporting pathways and support services so kids can meet our graduation expectations and meet the high expectations that go with that, but a consistent increase in post-secondary attainment for learners as well, with this past graduating class being at 65% of them attending college immediately after they've left here or attending a trade school. So that's the best results both for graduation rates that we've had in at least the last decade, as well as post-secondary attainment as we've developed programs and kids have continued to feel confident in pursuing that as each year goes on. We have consistently now for the past at least 4 years had about half of our senior class participating in New Hampshire Applies Day, which is something that happens statewide, where kids can apply to any school in New Hampshire. We have college reps come in, they help them write their essays, they apply on the spot. All the application fees are waived. So we've consistently had at least half of our seniors doing that each year for the last several years. I remember back in the 18-19 school year, that would be maybe a third or a quarter of kids who would do that. So we've got a lot of anecdotal pieces like that support why this increase is happening. But again, it comes back to having a specific focus, getting more of our learners to graduate and providing resources they can either go to trade school, 2-year school, or 4-year school. And more of our kids are finding that path to success, which is great. Yep, next, please. This is the list of colleges and trade schools that our learners have attended from the past 3 graduating classes. So obviously I deleted duplicates. There's 68 institutions on this list here. They range, quite a range. We've got some private schools like Champlain College, which is a private liberal arts school with a variety of majors. We've got some state universities, some more well-known than others. New Hampshire schools, there's several technical institutes on here. Keene Beauty Academy has been a popular choice as more learners have gotten access to the cosmetology program through Keene. We usually take it whatever seats they'll give us in that program. We've got RPI, we've got RTI, WPI. So our kids generally, when they seek to go to a school, we're able to support them going there and they have what they need to find success in doing that. Lots of programming and supports that we've been implementing to support school culture and climate. We have twice a week mentoring, and you can just click through this animation because we're going to get into more detail on each one of these. Student leadership programs continue to grow. We've got excellent people who are stepping into leadership roles and helping to grow and develop them. Classroom guidance has been a focus through our school counseling team as that team has continued to grow its collective skill. And we've been continuing to hire really great people in those roles. And under the amazing leadership of Kim Baker, who's going to present as well tonight, we've seen lots of growth in that area. We started 6 years ago, the Foundations for the Future program as part of a full career future planning program, which was ahead of its time because the new Ed 306s require comprehensive career and future planning, which we already have. That's great. And last year was the first year that loop completed with a senior capstone, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And this year, we've really been focusing as well on further defining our multi-tiered systems of support, which includes a learner support and student support team model. So just some examples of student leadership that we've built. Heather Lindstedt being essential to many of these programs. We've got tons of teachers and learners with great ideas as well. We continue to grow our transition leadership program, Web at the middle school and Link at the high school. Huge numbers of kids in each one of those programs that help to make the transition. In the case of Web, those are 8th graders who help incoming 6th graders. And it's not just that they run the orientation at the beginning of the year, which they do, but they continue to offer programming throughout the course of the year. They come to lunches with them. They go to mentoring programs with them. They run events. And the same thing with Link, which is 11th and 12th graders supporting new freshmen. Our National Honor Society this year is extending to grade 10 as well. We last year had about 50 learners in grades 11 and 12 who met the academic, which is a 3.2 grade point average academic requirement, as well as the service and leadership pieces. And this year, with adding the sophomores, that will grow further. We also introduced last year a National Junior Honor Society, which is grades 7, 8, and 9. That's why we start grade 10 with National Honor Society. And they had great success last year. I think they had 25 members for their first year. So at the middle and high school, we have that academic leadership piece. This year, we're also adding a National Art Honors Society, which is just at the beginning stages of organizing. Our student councils at both schools are continuing to mature, which has been really great. They come to me with ideas that I don't often know how to handle. We've got youth mental health and NAMI, which I'll ask Kim to talk about.
So we had the opportunity to take 9 high school learners to Concord. We were invited by NAMI New Hampshire to participate in a youth leadership program that supports suicide prevention, and it's a train the trainer program. So those 9 learners will come back into our building and train other leaders to continue the message of suicide prevention, ways to support learners or adults that they know, even in the community in need, the resources that are available. Also knowing that they're not alone in that process and that we're here to support them. And it was quite an amazing day. There were 4 other schools there, and just seeing our learners interact with other schools and to engage at that level. And then they came back and we had a meeting here just to debrief, and they're really excited about pushing into mentoring groups, putting some messaging around our building, reaching out to families, just to engage more in that conversation. It was really something amazing.
Our Interact Club continues to be a great partnership with the Rotary, quite robust. I think they're typically between 40 and 50 members every single year, providing service in the community, doing a service trip, supporting the school, and helping to make connections between all different kind of parts of our community here. And I think, I don't know why National Honor Society is on there twice, but there it is again. I think that was supposed to be National Art Honor Society, which is the new one. And Dante had mentioned earlier his creation of the forum and bringing on board. They're actually going, I think, in November to the Granite State Challenge to do the qualifying rounds, which is really exciting. But we continue to have examples like that at both the middle school and the high school of kids creating or asking for opportunities to develop school culture, which is why I think what Dante said is absolutely what I'm seeing as well. Every year we've seen this where more kids become more invested in things. The Spirit Days every year get a little bit more spirited. The pep rally was incredibly loud for both the middle school and the high school. I did have the pleasure of seeing a chunk of the middle school homecoming and most of the high school one, and being at the dance for the high school homecoming. Really cool to see that many kids. The homecoming dance at the high school was great. You had kids grabbing each other and like seniors really pulling in the freshmen to try to get them excited about dancing. We're seeing more and more of that as kids want and expect to have those opportunities to develop their school culture. So it's been really fun to see that growing. It does put a strain on our ability to manage all the different events between the 2 schools, but that's a good problem to have.
So I just want to talk a little bit about classroom guidance. So we spent a lot of time in the classroom. So at the middle school counselor, Ashley Hannaford, is in 6th grade every week and in 7th and 8th grade every other week doing classroom lessons. A lot of that is we support what we're seeing in the building. We do monthly themes, like September was suicide prevention, October is bullying prevention, and in there just providing lessons. And then at the high school level, the 2 high school counselors push into the freshman foundation class, which I'll talk a little bit about further on in the presentation. We use Second Step. That's one of the programs that we use in the classroom. They have really great tools and opportunity for learners to engage in anything that we're doing, like I said, the suicide prevention, the bullying prevention, transition into middle school, transition into high school. So it's something that's also utilized at the elementary level. So they have that nice K through 8 programming that they're used to and that they like to engage in. And then we have lots of partnerships. We talked a little bit about NAMI New Hampshire. David mentioned Youth Services in Keene that comes in and does some work with our learners, both in response to needs, but also proactive programming that we do. We work with Monadnock Center for Violence Prevention, Reality Check, River Center, and that takes on many forms. They may come in and partner in the classroom with us. They might be providing us with resources. They may host evening events for families or community members. So it can look very different, but they're great community partners, and we're always looking to build those partnerships. We talked a little bit about foundations. So we have a freshman foundation class, which all of our 9th graders take. They start with some goal setting. We talk about the transition from 8th to 9th grade, even though we're in the same building. There's a lot of things that shift and change between 8th and 9th grade. And so school counselors are pushing in. They go in every single Wednesday and they work with Dana Jackson, who's a teacher of the class. They work together on all the programming, what the course is going to look like. They do a lot of future planning. What are the things you're interested in? What are the things you're curious about? Where are your strengths and all of that, and they build plans throughout the school year that they reflect on and revisit in 10th and 11th grade, and then that leads to our capstone project. And really hoping that we can invite the community to join the capstone. So last year was our first opportunity, and the capstone is really kind of wrapping up your whole high school experience and taking what you've learned about yourself through the courses, through the experiences that you've had, and focusing on something that will help you continue to build your pathway after you graduate, no matter what you do after you leave us. And so those capstones can focus on a career and technical education class that a learner might be taking. Some of our learners are taking college classes, and that might be the focus of their capstone. Many of our learners are building their own programs and participating in extended learning opportunities, spending time in the little Orioles, or we have learners this year that are at our elementary schools working with other teachers. They're using their work experience to build their capstone. And they are doing weekly reflections, getting feedback, meeting with Dana Jackson and Gretchen Booth Thibault to reflect on that. And that all wraps up in this really nice presentation. And we held it last year in the library classroom. I think it's kind of small. I think we've outgrown that space already. And it was like a science fair setup where we just walked around and engaged in conversation. And they told us about all about their capstone, but also what they learned through that experience, what they learned while they were here in high school. And it was quite amazing, and other learners got to see it, and we're really hoping to open it up to community and parents and guardians this year. It was really, I think, more than I could expect. The learners were amazing. David mentioned a little bit about learner support, and SST stands for Student Support Team. We want to make sure that all of our learners have the support that they need to feel successful. And that means paying attention to what's happening for our learners. Are we having learners who maybe are missing a lot of school or coming to school late, or maybe their grades start to dip, or maybe we're seeing a rise in attendance? And we want to have conversations so that we can support learners. What might be going on? What can we do to help them feel more successful here? How can we help engage our parents and guardians in those conversations? So we do that at the learner support level. We do that with administrators in the school counseling team. And then every Wednesday, the school counseling team is available for drop-in. So any teacher can drop in and say, hey, I'm worried about a learner. I'm seeing something change in this learner. How can I support them? Do you know there's anything going on that I should be aware of, or that might help me better support them in the classroom? Or it can even be in the drop-in. Like sometimes maybe you're seeing a lot of behaviors in your classroom and you want some help. You want an observation or some different ways to manage what you're seeing in your classroom. And so teachers can just stop in and talk to one or the whole team. It really depends on what teachers and learners need. So always trying to build that kind of basket of resources and supports before things start to escalate, right? Like as you saw earlier, we're seeing a decline in the number of discipline referrals, the number of suspensions, and we want to continue to see those numbers go down. And this is one way for us to do some early intervention here at the school. And then we have mentoring. So mentoring is a 20-minute period of time. It happens after block 1 every day. And we have mentoring activities that learners participate in every Tuesday. So at the beginning of every month, I send out a list of, 10 or 12 activities to the mentoring teachers, and they get those activities. And then they choose, and many of those mentor teachers put up all the activities for their learners to look at. And as a team, they decide what 2 or 3 activities over the month they're going to participate in. And these are an example. This month is bullying prevention, and it is also Red Ribbon Week. Well, next week is the week, but we kind of celebrate it as a month. And so these are just a sample of the activities that mentors and mentees could participate in this month. And so every Tuesday they do an activity, and then every Wednesday the students participate in a mentor reflection, so they can say, did they like the activity? What would they recommend for improvement? What was the best part of it? So we take their feedback, like what's working, what's not working, more interactive activities, less interactive. And so we take that feedback, we share it at our staff meetings, we talk about it as an administrative team. And when I'm putting those together, I take that into consideration and try to provide a wide range of things for our learners to participate in. And some of the areas that we want to focus on is, I talked a little bit about the mentoring program, but also we don't want the mentoring program to be like a one and done. Like bullying prevention isn't just 3 activities in the month of October, right? So we're making sure that in our weekly connection, we're sharing information with our families and community. We're making sure that we're doing tabling in our cafeteria, and we're inviting in our community partners. And we are just trying to spend more time making sure that those tier 1, which are those universal programs that we want all of our learners to have, are happening multiple times throughout the month to reinforce or provide supports or information for our learners, and that we're also meeting the needs of a diverse group of learners. We're focused on attendance. So behind the screen, you may have seen our bulletin board, just really focused on why attendance here at Conant Middle High School is important and why coming to school is important. And then when you're not here, we miss you and we want you to come back and be in school with us and be engaging. So we're doing a little kind of competition between grades in September, 6th grade 1. So I don't know, you might want to get those juniors, Dante, on board to kind of race with the 6th graders. But even though 6th grade 1, we want to try to increase their attendance too. So learning a little bit about what's behind that. What are some of the reasons our learners aren't in school, and what might we do to encourage better attendance? Always looking to be in the classroom. So we do a really great job with regular classroom visits in grades 6 through 9. So our focus this year is to figure out more ways to push into classrooms for learners in grades 10 through 12. So that's a big focus for us this year. Talk a little bit about testing support. Or do you want to? So I know that we spent some time looking at our test scores and identifying learners that could benefit from New Hampshire SAS and SAT, PSAT test prep and tutoring. So we identified those learners. I had the privilege of meeting with the high school learners to talk about ways that they could engage in the test prep portion of it, met individually with all those learners, emailed home, had an opportunity to set up schedules for them. Unfortunately, attendance wasn't where we would hope it would be, but we'll continue to reach out to those learners. So it's some way that the school counselors are still involved with that process too. And then I think I touched on this, always looking to provide a multi-tiered system of support. We want to make sure that there's programming for that all of our learners get 100% of our learners get those tier 1 supports. And then learners who may need additional supports and programming besides the tier 1 receive that at the tier 2 and tier 3 level, which goes back to that learner support process that we're following and always looking to improve.
So before I jump into the continuing challenges piece, I just want to touch back on the mentoring for 1 second. One of my goals today have been to try to capture some pictures of the things that are produced through the mentoring activities. If you walked through our building, you would see trees outside of a lot of classrooms with leaves that have sort of strategies for managing daily stress. Or you might see there was one activity that was creating like a heart out of sticky notes, and each one had a nice message that people can grab if they're feeling a little bit down for the day. It's things like that, but all across the building, you can see these outside of every single classroom, because the kids get into it and they really do take it seriously, to the point that they not only are doing the mentoring activities, but they're doing them with care and they're doing them with attention. I walked by a group, I think it was the end of last week, that was making their tree, and they were really thoughtful about what the leaves said, and they didn't like a couple of them, so they took them down, we're redoing them, but they are having dialogue and conversations. And that's the big part about the mentoring activities, is that piece more than anything else. It's making sure that every kid understands that when we're talking about bullying prevention or stress management or how to handle the flow of a school day and not feel like you're getting burned out, that kids are internalizing and seeing that this is something that all of their peers are working on together, and that the strategies are not ones that they have to access on their own. And I think that that's had a huge impact the more that we've been successful at building that type of programming, and the more that kids have been able to give us feedback that has then turned around to make the programming more successful. So I didn't take pictures today because we have a no cell phone policy during the day, and I'm unwilling to set a bad example. So I actually do not take my cell phone out during the day, but that's okay. If you walk around anytime, you'll see the examples of that. And then I'll touch a little bit more on in the challenges section on the testing support. We included that on school culture and climate because that is an important part of growth for us, is considering how we can continue to reach kids in those areas. And it speaks to an ongoing challenge of getting that type of seriousness embedded in with the testing that our teachers see in their classrooms. So I'll talk about that in a little bit. One area that continues to elude us in terms of how to fill this gap is consistent parent-guardian support when it comes to some of these areas of difficulty. And I'm not saying that most of our parents are not always supportive, but I'm saying that it's a chunk. And that chunk can be very consuming of our time, but can also make it really difficult to institute the types of systems that can support improvements in some areas of our school. A great example is discipline. When we have behavior challenges and we institute the discipline code or code of conduct, we, more than I would like, get a rejection of the school's authority to do that. And that can be really difficult. If we're attempting to impose a graduated set of sanctions and a parent's response is, you're not keeping my kid after school, now we're automatically moving into, okay, well, we have to address it now during the school day, which means some sort of in-school suspension, right? And that creates a whole different basket of challenges. When parents in the school are not on the same page for the discipline of learner behavior at school, it undermines systems and makes it really hard to then gain the appropriate level of buy-in to improve some behavior. Unfortunately, we get a pretty consistent rejection of support offerings from baskets of different parent populations in our community. That's really difficult. I get as many emails and concerns about having homework, for example, as I get about the thought that we don't have homework, which is not true. We have a late bus and we have a tutoring center that's open 4 days a week to help learners. Many parents will say, well, my kid's at school for 7.5 hours. If they need extra help, that's too bad. These are difficult pieces. How do you build a system to close gaps if we don't have parent buy-in to then have their kids get the types of support that might be helpful to them? Testing is a tough one, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. We have a large pocket of people who reject the importance of those tests, and they come from two different places. That's why it's hard to reach them. One place is, well, my kid is much more than a test, and I don't want them being kind of boiled down to a test number, so I don't support this. And the other is, well, I don't want my kid being, kind of held responsible for this type of data point and figure something else out. So that's tough. And then we'll talk a little bit about the forums as well. We offer a lot of community events that try to help parents and guardians with some of these really tough areas of raising children nowadays. Screenagers is a great example to help with some of the technology pieces. We've had some substance nights to help parents kind of recognize challenges around substance abuse or what to look for. We offered bullying and suicide prevention awareness for adults at the open house, and these have often no or very low attendance, which can be discouraging from community partners coming back. So these are some challenges, and this is a community effort that we have to figure out. The school can only offer so much if we can't figure out a way to get some of these folks to the table with us. That becomes a really difficult piece. So just as an example, we talked a little bit about testing. We heard the message loud and clear that this is an important data point for pockets of society today in our community. That was a very loud conversation last year. We get it. So we went through the steps this summer. We spent money sending letters to all of the learners who scored at level 1 in either ELA or math on any of the state tests, kind of alerting parents or guardians that we're concerned and we're going to offer some additional support. We followed that up with individual meetings in the school year. We shifted around some after-school resources from clubs and activities to create this after-school tutoring center and have provided some tutoring resources. Counseling met individually, actually Kim met individually with 30 learners in grades 10 and 11 and arranged time for them to come either during a junior block or after school. Only 6 of those individuals have come so far. And that's despite kind of assurance that they would be there or seeming support from home. With the middle school, we have created, again, SAS tutoring options. We're using a tool called Lumos, which is specifically designed to help with SAS. We've called, had letters sent home and or met with 38 7th and 8th graders based on the spring's results. And so far, we've had 2 individuals come to the sessions that we're offering and trying to set up for them. That's really hard. When we're putting programming in place, and we can't pull them from core programming during the day because that would cause them to fall behind in the actual academics, it's hard to then gain any sort of traction when the response that we often get is, no, we don't think that's important. We also, just as another example, a school day example, tomorrow is our fall testing day with PSAT and SAS interim assessments, and we typically use the afternoon either for makeup for missing work, reassessment if there's classroom pieces. And this year I gave Kim the undesirable task of going through any kid who had any ones anywhere in SAS or SAT and automatically checking that we'd like them to stay tomorrow for some extra SAS or SAT practice. Most of those parents have dismissed their children from that tomorrow, which is during the school day, stating things like, you're not going to punish my child for a single test score. So this is really hard, and I don't know what the answer is, but this is a barrier. And we're stating here's additional resource, and I heard at the last board meeting I attended that we could be doing more. We're trying to find ways to do more. I don't know how to overcome that resistance, absent creating some sort of a mandatory class, which is challenging in other ways. So that's a tricky piece of our school culture that I'm not sure how to bridge that gap with some pockets. Most of our parents are very supportive and very great, and we appreciate all of our families, but this is a pocket that I just don't know how to retrain. This is the open house, great attendance this year, by far the most we've ever had. We counted 497 people who crossed through the doors here and signed in. It was kind of crazy. I didn't get to leave the sign-in table until 6:30, which is an hour into open house. I've never had that happen. That was amazing. And again, it speaks to what we've seen with a lot of these kind of fun things that we do with families. We do get very good attendance at those. But again, the forum that was provided during open house, our counseling team put together and had nobody go in there. So that was tough. And then another area of challenge we're having is the staffing levels, which Ruben kind of talked about a little bit earlier. Obviously, we have to make choices this year, and that's understandable, but creates a very difficult climate for staff and how they can support each other and work with kids. The middle school currently has absolutely no flexibility in schedules. This is resulting in some really large classes, in some cases 28 to 29, 30 kids, but within those very large class groupings, one example, we have a teacher who has 12 or 13 identified students, and there's no place to kind of break that up or provide additional opportunities for that group. If we have behavioral challenges, there's a group that is a known kind of not really great together group that we always would try to break up, but they're traveling in a pack this year because there's just nowhere to put them, and it's burning our teachers out, and we don't know how to support them. Our academic labs this year, we had to shift around some staffing because of student service needs. So we lost a middle school special educator. And in addition to that, lost that core teacher and the STEM teacher. So the schedules have become so tight that there was literally no place to put academic labs. If we had planned for that, that would be okay because you might be able to develop a really effective co-teaching model, but that's not really where we're at right now. So again, we're pulling a lot of different levers to try to make sure that learners with special education needs are getting what they need, and our teachers are doing it, but at great cost. And it's not a sustainable model. It is creating a really difficult scenario in the middle school. And again, UA periods, there's just not options for them. And music's a great example. At both the middle and high school, we went from 2 music teachers to 1. Her classes have been hard to fill in some cases because there is just no place to put some of these options so that they fit with all the core classes with the fewer teachers there as well. So we're kind of at a nightmare scenario in the middle school. It's really tough. And I don't know how it would sustain without making some choices about what's important and not going into next year. And I would say the high school has had different types of needs, and this has been a longer conversation about the high school. This year, we were not able to host any summer programming, which was very difficult. That's typically when we've had anywhere from 30 to 40 credits recovered by high school learners, mostly because they were missing one learning goal or two learning goals, and it was relatively short-lived to get them over the finish line, but we had no summer school this year. So this has resulted in two scenarios, me trying to find tutors to do this during the school year, which is really hard. But mostly we've had kids repeating classes that they were very close to passing, and we don't lower our expectations. That's not the type of school we are. But without another option, that means that we have kids repeating a class because of one or two learning goals. That is a tough climate hit based on some of these staffing issues. Again, some UA flexibility challenges as we've lost those staffing pieces. And this is particularly true. We have UA teachers shared with the middle school. And again, this goes to the support offering for SAT. It'd be great to have a school day mandatory SAT prep class. Even if I had the buy-in to do that, I don't have the staff to do that. And I'm not sure what that would even look like. So that's another piece in the high school that is a hard climate hit right now. And this is just some food for thought. This is from the state's website. This is the 2023 to 2024 school year and budget year. So this is not last year's numbers and certainly not this year, which I can't even imagine. But even as far as 2 years ago back, you can see that on the middle school side, the middle school's average across New Hampshire per pupil cost was $21,545. Our middle school was $20,305. So that was about $1,240 less than average, which is a total based on that year's student population of $297,600, less than the average that our middle school was funded. But you can see the high school is a much more significant concern even 2 years ago. The high school 2 years ago, that's the yellow dot, that's drifting below the range of the other two. Our high school into the 24 school year was funded at $18,336 per pupil. The state average for high schools was $21,545 per pupil that year. That's a difference of $3,209 per pupil, or over $1 million. If you add up, you multiply that by the student population at the high school that year. That's a significant difference, and that's just from the midline average. That is not making us the Taj Mahal, for example. So I point this out only because last year, we already know that we were 68 out of 72 for funding at the high school level. And after the cuts this year, we will, I'm sure, be that 72 out of 72 figure. That's hard. That's creating issues every single year that compounds. I mean, if we had been at the average, that would have been 10 additional teaching positions at the high school and 3 at the middle school. That's a lot of personnel difference. Even getting us halfway to the average would have been 5 and 2. So without those resources, we've made significant growth. And I just want to remind the community and the board that we continue to have needs at both grade spans that a reduced budget does not serve, as the state average is continuing to increase. And you can see ours is on a downward trend. So, and this is not because we have less kids. This is a per pupil average cost, which means that as our kids decline, if the per pupil is declining, that means our funding is declining as well. So this is a tough area to be in, and it's something to consider as we think about next year. I think the middle school is in absolute dire straits. We're holding the culture together and continuing to grow with learning. I worry if we don't do something to at least bring back some core support for the middle school. And the high school has done, I mean, School of Excellence with the funding we had is incredible and a testament to the staff we have, but not sustainable if we don't do something or think about the type of school we want to create with this level of funding going forward. And I'll try to end on a quick summary because that was a lot of information. So this is my executive summary of entering year number 6 as the principal here. We have made a lot of progress in a lot of areas as a school. Academically, you saw from both the graduation rate and the increase in college attendance and post-secondary attendance, the decline in significant behaviors, the decrease in the kids needing suspension, the leadership elements that have continued to grow. We have created sustainable programs in a lot of parts of our school. Our behaviors are getting better. I promise I didn't plan that with Dante to talk about the increased engagement. He's absolutely spot on. That is true. Learners love their school. Not everyone every day, but increasingly learners are finding something here that connects them to their community. Learners are graduating and finding increasing success in college every year that we continue to have these systems in place. And we have also met many of our programming goals. We had back in, I think it was 21, we set 5-year goals across the district, and we were revisiting those recently. And most of the ones pertaining to our schools have been checked off as being either completed or in progress, which is really great. That's what should be happening. And that's something that we're really proud of. We still are not quite reaching all pockets of parents and guardians in our community, and that's a challenge. Parents and guardians have the most important role in how their kids view school, far more important than anything that I can do or that an individual teacher can do in almost every circumstance. And what we find is when we have consistent parent guardian support, those 2 kids who are showing up from the middle school or the 8 kids showing up from the high school for testing, for example, those learners are going to grow, and those are where we find successes. But education is an equal partnership in the sense that if the school and parents don't find avenues to be on the same page, it undermines every system for that individual learner or group of learners. I think staffing is an increasing difficulty, and this is a year that I think decisions have to get made about what the school is going to look like here. We're at a turning point where either we let things go or we find ways to hold them together and hopefully sustain them more effectively going forward. But I think that I feel that I'm at the extent of what I can hold together with what we have, and I know our staff is certainly feeling like they're at their breaking point in a lot of ways. And the time I've been the principal, I have not heard that conversation as much as I have this year. And I think in particular, the middle school is just not sustainable how it is now. So either we need to pull back on some of our academic programming, which would be a shame because I think we're making significant growth with Wit and Wisdom as a 90-minute program and with consistent math and RTI related to math. But with our staffing levels, those things, as well as the new state requirement for computer science at the middle level, which I don't think we're going to be as well equipped to handle as we think we might be, as well as some of the changes with Ed 306 at the high school, I just don't think that that's sustainable. So that's it. That's my presentation.
Wow.
Yeah. Board, all right, board comment, board questions, John.
Yes, David, this last thing that you touched on, and first of all, thank you for all that you presented, you and Kim both. But we have been worrying, I think, I'd say collectively, about the very thing you mentioned, that staff might be at the breaking point. We know that the loss of staffing and the spreading of responsibilities to other people who try and plug the gaps, that's got to be wearing. One of the things that we struggle with is how to communicate this to our partners in the community. And by our partners, I mean, some of our businesses that really depend on good schools to attract workers and to attract people who come into town and buy homes. They've got to be concerned about this, but they don't seem to be aware. I'd say the same thing about our town leaders, our selectmen and other members of our community who have their own challenges to deal with. But I wonder, how can we communicate to them that we're in a very fortunate moment, but that we're reaching a breaking point?
I think starting with exactly what you just said, that we've been very fortunate to have the staff that we have. We have amazing teachers. We have caring paraeducators. I mean, every person who comes into our schools cares deeply about learners. And we're fortunate because they want to be a part of the work that's been happening in our district. And I think that's true across all 3 of our schools. But that desire and that kind of groundedness only can carry somebody so far. And I think we are at that place where we've been fortunate, and we won't continue to be if we don't find a way to give some support to the people who come in and take care of our children and teach them and prepare them for the future. I think that message has to be consistent and not confused with things like a one-off, SAT or SAS data point that gets far more attention than it probably should. I think if you talk to our learners and you watch them in classroom and you see them presenting and you hear them speak and you look at the projects they're producing and what they do in the community, that if people could see that more and move past, obsessing over a single point in the year, we might have some success with community members understanding what they have here in their schools. I don't know how to help them otherwise. I also don't know if people want to know that stuff about our schools. I can't even tell you how dismayed I was to hear somebody lying about the children in our community and their teachers and saying kids can't read because their SAT score was less than 50%. They don't even know what that score means when they say things like that. So I don't know how to help those individuals except to phrase it as bluntly as you just said. We are very fortunate, and we're nearing the end of that good fortune if we don't do something to help kind of plug those needs and make sure our staff have what they need. I mean, even something as seemingly minor as like a substitute, situation that we're dealing with right now is becoming so much of a strain on our staff because they already are feeling strained. And I'll give you an example. Today we had no substitutes in our building for per diem subs, which is pretty common, but people were out sick. So teachers are stepping in and covering, they're giving up their preparation periods. They're still trying to find ways to get their own work done, and people are leaving sick during the day. So now we're making more phone calls to get people to come out. There are some days that we have 8 to 10 people out with 1 or 2 subs, and it's teachers filling that gap. That seemingly small burden on them, is exponentially harder when they're already dealing with some of these other challenges I mentioned about having inflexibility with learner needs and schedules, or having these super large classes that they're not really sure how to support without increased resources for themselves. So I think the message needs to be just as blunt as you said, John. We are very fortunate that we have had great staff, great teachers, great support staff, and we are at the point where they're starting to feel like this may not have the future that they're looking for if they don't start getting a little more support. And not support from their administration, support from their communities, speaking about the things that they value about their schools. Because I think another thing I would say, and another mistruth, is that our staff don't feel supported by their administrators. That is not true. Right now, what they don't feel supported by is their communities. And that's a really sad, different place from what I'm used to in the time, the 16 years that I've been here. I have not seen that be the vibe that staff are feeling, but they're feeling it right now more than ever.
Anything else?
And I think it's a testament to them that our kids don't feel that as much as they could. I mean, it's remarkable to me that that our student representative is echoing what I said about kids being proud of their schools and having more spirit than they usually do in the year that we've had this huge blow to what the schools are able to have for support and offer. And that's because of our staff, making sure that they still provide our kids what they need and more.
Thank you, John.
I was thrilled to be here on open house. It was one of those, however many parents you said were here, people were here. It was 497. John was here too. School looks amazing. We've been so tight with our money, and yet you walk through and things are painted, the artwork on display here and in the painted lockers. I mean, it was beautiful, and the teachers were so engaged, waiting in line to speak to a teacher for a few minutes. It was really remarkable. I felt a great deal of pride in our school, and you see, parents looked happy, kids looked happy. It was beautiful. I would like to encourage us to start actually inviting some of our community leaders and our selectmen to things like open houses and to graduation or awards night. I mean, our awards night last year was amazing. So many kids got awards, and it wasn't the usual 2 kids. It was a very diverse group of kids who got scholarships and awards. And I don't know if any of the selectmen or community leaders would show up, but I think being invited, it would put that on their radar.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
We are doing good things, and I understand that the teachers and the administrators are maxed out. We need to help.
And I wish there was a way to help people to understand the kids that they also are fortunate to have here. There's people who have come here from other schools and taken jobs, and they stay, and they say, I just had an incident today that occurred, and I went to see the teacher to say, oh, I'm so sorry that behavior happened. It was a behavior situation that's not normal for us. And that teacher said to me, first of all, you coming and checking is great, but the sad thing is this happened all the time at my other school. It doesn't happen here, and because we care so much about our kids, and our kids come along with these really great value systems. This is what we hear from any person who comes from the outside into our schools. Oh my gosh, your kids, they're eager to learn, they're kind, they're respectful, they make mistakes, but not big mistakes. And when they do, they learn. We're fortunate in that way too. And the kids in these communities deserve a bigger conversation around, well, where they're coming from and where they're going and what they can get while they're here to make them stay here. And I think that's the sad part about this dialogue too, is when kids don't see their schools as a center focus of the community, they move on. They find an opportunity elsewhere and they don't come back. And, you know, when I first started teaching here, we had a lot of kids who went off to college far away, and I don't see any of them around here, hardly ever. And good for them that they found a life's journey, but sad for us because these were talented, smart kids who should have been obvious, you know, individuals to remain here. And I think that we lose something really dear to these communities that should be dear to them. If they don't feel like the community has their back at this young age, they don't come back and have the community's back when they get older. They go and move on to someplace else. And I think that's a big challenge that the leaders in these towns, it's not my place. I'm not a town select person, but I think that's something that's missing in the conversation is what it's going to take to help keep more of these graduates here, building businesses, running for town council or select boards, helping to grow business or build new downtown infrastructure, whatever it might be. We are missing something with that. And I think that stems back to this conversation about who supports the schools and for what purpose and who doesn't and for what purpose. So that's just my 2 cents in the last decade and a half that I've been here and have been observing.
Thank you so much, David. I do want to remind people, as you talked about the scores and the testing and the number of that 38 students that were either low or dismissed, that those low scores do count toward the total, which
Right.
brings, like, it's not that if you don't take the test, then you're not counted. No, those are counted as zeros. So every low score brings the whole down. And so that is a real crisis that so many families are simply for multiple reasons saying that this isn't what we want to participate in, which I get it. I'm frustrated with the testing, and I actually, while we were looking at the perch on slide 8, when we saw the perch and the numbers of the data of who's in it, I looked up when the SAS test is, and I was, oh yes, it was right there. And in that April-May timeframe, like, oh yeah, that was SAS testing. Yeah, I've watched kids go through testing and oh yeah, I can see where that's a stressful time. But these are what count right now, as part of the whole. And thank you for bringing that whole to us. Chris, you had some?
Yeah, just to hit on a few things, and maybe this is getting a little bit ahead, but I think David kind of touched on it. I know we're going to talk about our priorities for the budget season, and I think number one I have here on my list was prepared to say is like taking care of our people, right? Our teachers, administrators, I think, are what we know makes this school thrive. And one of my goals is what I think we should do is show them that they are valued with the decisions that we're able to make in these upcoming weeks. I think I was surprised, but maybe shocked that we had as much staff and administrator retention as we did this year. I think it says a lot about the commitment to the school and the kids. Certainly there are other opportunities out there. My guess would be that if we have the same thing happen again, that's not going to be the case. And I think David is kind of hinting at what that situation is like. So I think that's something that we need to keep top of mind, is being sure that in all our conversations, we're going to have tough decisions, right, to make. But I think in all the conversations, we need to take care to show our staff that they're valued. Very important for me. Just to hit on quickly, I know I talked probably too much, but I appreciate the transparency in this. I think that very few other schools probably have this level of transparency on the data, right? Good and bad. I think one of the things that I appreciate is like, we do acknowledge that we have a problem with bullying or something like that, and we do something about it. I look at some of the state data and I see lists of like high schools that, haven't had a bullying incident in 4 years, which is, I'll say the nice word, not true, right? So I think I appreciate the fact that there are some tough truths that have to be, but in order to move forward as a school, you need to recognize that stuff. And I will say, like, on the community piece of it and the knowing of kids, I'm fortunate enough to know a ton of kids in these schools, right? And I will say that they don't feel so, there is that piece of this budget thing affected them. They don't feel supported. I hear the comments, right? They don't know, you know, they don't know and they don't care that I'm on the school board and I'm involved, you know, one or the other. And, you know, multiple times a week, I hear stuff about, oh, you know, we can't, we can't afford that. It's, you know, it's not the budget, you know, they don't care, you know, the budget thing, it gets said. And that's just the reality. You know, it's not prompted by anything. I think that they feel that, you know, we go to other schools that are nicer. I mean, oh, this is, you know, the school with money, where you hear that and it hurts and it shouldn't be that way. You know, that's the reality. But I will say that, you know, lucky enough knowing these kids, I could handpick 10 kids that if people are, you know, more than that, right? But people would just be blown away if they knew these kids, what they accomplished, I guess, across the whole spectrum, you know, arts, athletics. We have so many great kids. And I think a lot of people that we're trying to reach don't know these kids, right? If I go and if I were to have a conversation like, well, how many kids do you know that attend our schools? I think in some cases, you know, for a large portion of our community, that would be, you know, very few, if any. And I think it's hard to make a decision based on that. It's easy for me to make a decision. I know so many kids. You know, not everyone is as fortunate as that. Yeah, I think that's probably it for now. And I guess on the parent accountability issue, it's something that I understand and believe. I think when I ran for school board, kind of part of my goals was like, hey, let's connect with parents. I don't know how to connect with those parents. I'd be happy to, like, you know, continue to talk about brainstorming ways to do it. I think is an important piece of it. I think when you hear the word accountability, I've always, you know, accountability is on both sides. Parents need to be held accountable as much as the schools for the performance. I firmly believe that. I think some people don't. You know, the accountability, I think, is too heavily swayed towards the school when it really, in my mind, should be at the very least a 50-50 mix. I'd even argue that it's more on the parents. In any case, I don't know how to fix that. And I guess I will point out that that's also, I think, a uniquely public school challenge versus some of the things that we're put up against, right? Oh, you're not performing like this school or this school. Well, if you had that sort of like parent rejection and non-participation at some of these other schools, you'd be gone. And then they'd be here. And maybe that's happened in some cases. I don't know. But I think that that's something that's okay. And I appreciate the continued efforts to work on these things. I know it's probably a ton of work to put together tutoring sessions for 40 people and then have 2 people show up. And I admire the fact that you keep doing it. And I think that's, you know, what we should keep doing as we work on the problem. It's about problem solving.
It's this very interesting dynamic in New Hampshire right now with the parent-school connections. You know, there's laws that say parents have rights, absolutely. You know, parents are central to their kids' education, absolutely. But then there's also laws that say if there's any kind of conflict, parents have the right to, for example, just pull their child out of school for a window of time and put them back. And in that time that they're not in school, there's no accountability to what type of learning is or isn't happening. So sometimes it's even a situation where we engage a family about a problematic, challenging behavior or a significant area of concern or a need, and that learner is suddenly not in school anymore and they've been pulled to homeschool, and 2 months later they come back. And then we kind of rinse and repeat the cycle again, right? And it just keeps happening. And those individuals end up in our testing data as well, right? There's no balance in that dynamic. There's a ton of responsibility put on schools, but laws that undermine the school's ability to actually do those responsibilities. And that's a tricky dynamic in the state right now, which I don't have a good answer for, how you fix that. And I think the other piece is, this is anecdotal, but it used to be back in the day, you know, we hear this sometimes when a parent would get a call, their first reaction to their child would be, what did you do? More often than not now, the question is, what did the teacher do? And that's often what those families will then bring back to me. Well, my child is saying this, this, and this that the teacher did. And it's like, but your child is a teenager. And teenagers are hardwired in many cases to self-protect. That's what they're learning how to do. And we're supposed to kind of look through that screen and understand that we're dealing with adults who are entrusted with the care of our children. They're not telling lies, towards your child. But that is unfortunately where a lot of parents go right away is, your teacher's not telling the truth and I want you to do something about it. It's like, my teachers care about children. They're not trying to hurt them. So again, I'm with you, Chris. I don't know what the answer to that is, but it's a very, very tricky dynamic to navigate. Because again, if we push too hard, then that child's often will go to homeschool and we don't see them for a few months. And then, we're trying to pick up the pieces when they come back. So it's tough. Not something that comes through in SAT or SAS data in any clear way, except that all of a sudden that's a level 1 that we can't say anything about, right? Stuff.
Thank you so much for
Thank you for the time.
incredibly appreciative for this. This will be up on the website very soon. And we'll have it sectioned off in the school board area so that the community can view the session, hear David's explanations of things and Kim's explanation. Thank you guys so much for the variety, the sheer variety of both the data points, but also the work you're doing, just the variety of trying to come at it from so many angles. Well done.
Can I ask, because there's some information that's coming up.
I have a college essay due at 11:59 p.m.
Well done sticking with us for a bit.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Could I ask maybe Kim to just answer one question? She would need a microphone for that. She's not prepared. Yeah, I didn't tell her about this, but I'm just looking at the agenda. And
To ask more about
yeah,
that too.
yeah. I
All right,
figured you
we're
would-
gonna go to the consent agenda and we're gonna move it to donations to the Jaffrey Ringe Education Foundation. Electrical Journeyman Education at CMH is getting $3,000. What is that? What is that?
Yeah, so as you know, we, our construction trades teacher left. And we were not able to fill that position, but we had a lot of learners that had been and still are really invested in the program. And so we were able to work with a team of individuals from Apprenticeship New Hampshire who came in and said, what can we do for your school? This is really important. We want to see if we can get them connected, and they help get the seats in Keene to send learners there for construction trades. But I think one of the biggest gaps was we had learners that had done 2 of the 3 classes, and the last class that they needed to take was the electrical. And a lot of these learners are looking to go, that's a career pathway for them. And so they connected us with Advanced Technical Schooling, and it's an online electrical program. And Nathan and Mindy Poland run the program. They developed it. And they came out and met with us and met with our learners. And we have 9 learners enrolled in the program. And they will, at the end of the 2 years, have 150 hours towards the 600 hours required for their journeyman license. And after they finish that program and graduate, they can continue working on the other hours if they want to enroll at Advanced Technical Schooling to finish, or they can take those hours and those credits to another school to finish, or they can work under somebody else and finish their apprenticeship. But there's all kinds of doors that are open for those learners. And I think the most amazing part was how Apprenticeship New Hampshire scooped in. I was meeting with like 4 or 5 different individuals every week. They were trying to connect our learners with other apprenticeship opportunities in the community, and they're not done. They want to come back and do more with us because they see how important that is for our learners to have that and be able to finish that process or continue that interest. So that's what that program is. It costs just under $1,000 per learner, and they get books and they get to finish it online. And some of our learners are like cruising through it, like on the weekends, and in the evening they're really into it. It's quite amazing. It's all interactive. They take these little module assessments, but there's videos, there's hands-on, there's real person support. And so, yeah, that's what that is.
Thank you. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So this donation would basically pay for 3 of those, because that certainly wasn't a budgeted item this year. And so we're also grateful for, to be able to get into Keene for their.
Yeah, we've
construction.
been
Yep,
really
so
fortunate. We're sending
Very fortunate thing.
buses to Keene, and I think we have 12 students doing construction trades there, which is quite amazing. They've been great, and they just got their first progress reports, and all the comments were glowing about, we talk about how wonderful our learners are. They are. And other teachers like them. I get messages from the cosmetology teacher and the health science teacher just raving about our students and the things that they're doing at other schools. So it's very exciting that they have those opportunities. So yeah, so thank you.
Thank you. And thanks again to the Jaffrey Ringe Education Foundation. I feel like we've been seeing their organization coming up a great deal this year. They are a powerful group. They've been a resource for our district for well over a decade, I believe, and they've just been amazing to find just the right areas. So
They help support have the ongoing support of the elementary school inquiry scholars, which is Dr. Tom Bennett, Franklin Pierce University, and so forth, to come into our schools, as well as the new reading programs that they do.
How does that inquiry scholars program work? It's in both of the grade schools or just the Jaffrey or what?
Yeah, the fast way of saying is that last year, Ringe Memorial School had the Bird's Nest, which was a partnership with the college, and it was an after-school program where they, wrote stories, did podcasts, got them recorded, published, etc. And then they gave a presentation and kind of a showcase along with the learners from these are all fourth and fifth graders from Jaffrey Grade School. They had the Inquiry Scholars, which is more of a inquiry research approach to a topic. And they also have college student mentors with the students. So these individuals come to our elementary schools. Then they have a showcase at the end as well. This year, the Jaffrey Ringe Education Foundation and our partnership with the college, we've expanded that. One of the individuals working with us is our former science teacher here, Laura Harding. She works over at the college, so she's giving back. And so in the fall, let me make sure I get this right. The fall, I believe, Inquiry Scholars is happening at Jaffrey Grade School, while the Writing Nest is happening over at Ringe Memorial School. In the spring. That will be flip-flopped.
Right.
all right.
Thank you.
In our consent agenda, we have manifests as noted. We have payroll as so noted. We have the donation from the Jaffrey Ringe Education Foundation that we just mentioned. We have a budget transfer. We can open up for a vocational tuition shortfall of 37,000 plus.
Mhm.
Right. And so that will be coming from student transportation. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so it's a transfer, not new funds. And no nominations of new hires, and we have a stipend list. We will entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Thank you, Chris. Is there a second? Thank
Second.
you, John. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Vote passes 600. Then we have our minutes from our last meeting. We have our non-public minutes as shown. Is there a motion to accept the non-public minutes?
I will make the motion to accept the non-public minutes from 10/6/2025.
Thank you, Christine. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Judy. All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Thank you. I'm assuming no discussion, so just shout out if I'm trying to get through because we have so much more to do tonight.
I abstained from that one.
You abstained,
Yeah.
so we have a 5-0-1. Let's take a look at the public minutes. Any discussion on these? Okay, we'll take a motion to accept the public minutes of October 6th, 2025.
I move we accept the minutes for the October 6th meeting as presented.
Thank you, Sandra. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, John. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Passes 6-0-0. Thank you. Action items, we have field trip approvals, one to Old Sturbridge Village for Ridge Memorial School and another for the Discovery Museum for Ridge Memorial School. We have a motion to approve these two field trips.
I have a question on the one for the Ridge Memorial School, the Old Sturbridge Village. So there's really no expected cost for this field trip, and I'm thinking it's a little expensive. I mean, it's probably a drop in the bucket, but it's figuring out it's just $800 just to get into Sturbridge Village, and they're saying they need 2 buses. I'm not saying it's not worthwhile. I'm not saying it's not good to go to, but I'm just saying it's a little costly, this trip. And there's no price given.
I believe, I could be mistaken on this one, I believe this may be one of the field trips that the Ringe PTO has raised money for to pay for it. Because I know we don't have field trips in our budget.
Right.
And so
And I don't want one big field trip that others will not be able to go on because we got one big one. I mean, 2 buses is going to be expensive.
transportation is the bulk of the expense when it comes to any of these trips. It is true. Yeah,
Yeah.
we pay for three hours automatically every time a bus goes out. Both the field trips that we have been having, the information that's come to me. While I don't control the funds of the PTO or the parent organizations. We've reported out about let her be anonymous funders who have supported the Harris Center. Some other individuals who have supported Harris Center and NHDI field trips and so forth for our elementary schools. And then, of course, both parent groups have done that. And some of these people we recognize in our newsletter that we sent out. That has happened a lot. My understanding is field trips are being supported by the community in a different way.
And I think in some of these cases, the students may be expected to cover some of the costs too.
In some cases, that would be
Field
the
trips
case,
aren't
yes.
necessarily all covered. It might be
That's
key
correct.
to the parents.
Yep.
So is there a motion to accept these field trips?
I'll move that we accept the 2 field trips as presented.
Thank you, Sandra. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Judy. All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Passes 6-0-0. On to our second readings of our 2 policies.
Just some information that has come in just to answer questions, because people are watching online. And gave them some information. Funds were raised by student council last year that are funding all RMS field trips this year for all grades and transportation.
Okay, very nice.
All right.
And the other, sorry. I know. I'm trying to give you accurate information. It includes the transportation costs, and that's what's being funded is transportation, and the families cover the entry fees.
Okay.
Well done, student council.
Yeah.
All right. Policy BEDC is on quorum, and this is a policy from the New Hampshire School Board Association. We are recommending as a policy committee that we adopt the new language from the New Hampshire School Board Association and conforms with legislative amendment of the Right to Know law, RSA Chapter 91A. And we've read this through. And any discussion on this? Okay.
Yeah, I just think it's important to note that the reason that I wanted this brought forward, it outlines kind of what it says up there in bold, how to participate electronically from a remote location, which is something that we do and I think should do, but having some guidelines around that in writing is important.
Then it's only a quorum if it's an emergency meeting, and we can't just call it an emergency meeting on random. It has to be set as an emergency meeting. Yeah. All right. let's do these individually. Do we have a motion to accept policy BEDC as written?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to accept policy BEDC as written.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Sandra. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? It passes 6-0-0. Our next policy is policy BEDG on meeting minutes. And this is also a new July New Hampshire School Board Association revision. And it was added to reflect the passage of HB 231 relative to the requirements for public meeting minutes. And so, I mean, it's a long one. It hasn't really changed much of what was before. I think that the required content of the minutes needed to have some clarification as far as especially non-public minutes and the dates of when non-public minutes are available. So that's what this clarifies. It's a much bigger policy and it just really clarifies information. Any further discussion on policy? I've lost the thought and I want to say it out loud. BEDG. Further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Or excuse me, I need a motion.
So moved. No, we accept policy BEDG.
Thank you, John, for making the motion. And is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Judy. I'll
Second.
take that. So we are voting on approving policy BEDG on meeting minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Passes 6-0-0. Thank you, guys. Now we're on to board goals and school budget guidance. And we did kind of talk about the school budget guidance a little bit earlier. We're kind of throwing this in, so we're still in the brainstorming stages on this. And we started a document for on board goals as far as our norms and expectations for board discussion. And I'm going to share this with Ruben right now. And with the board as I go through as well. And I'll make you guys editors.
Do you want
So if you
to
would-
grab this for your own computer?
That's okay.
No,
you
okay,
share
I'll just do
You
it,
can open
okay.
Well, while you open it up, I'm just gonna add the other board members to the
Okay.
document.
When we're talking about the school budget, his Gary Arcisi is the Jaffrey's representative. Is he aware of all this budgeting process and does he know about these meetings? It's
I brought to the select board, because we're supposed to have two on the
right.
select board. So for each, so I brought to them the draft of it. I was hoping somebody like you might bring the draft of the calendar to them, since you're at the office, but if you could just get it, like, even if you just put it in their boxes,
Okay.
made a copy of the thing, it might, when I gave it to them, it was the next night, so it still said draft, but we did approve it, so if you wouldn't mind just making copies, I don't know that anybody's aware of it. I
Okay.
don't know who's watching or who's.
Yeah.
We don't, the district doesn't mail something to people, they, as far as goes, but I think putting in people's boxes is a good reminder, hey, let's do this. Come to these meetings. All right, I think I got everybody.
Mhm.
Okay, so consistency in public comments responses. Now, if you were at the October 16th New Hampshire Fairness and Funding Project presentation, they needed 40 people to sign up. They had 80 people signed up. They had 120 people show up. And it was awesome. They did an incredible presentation, a lot of great information, and we had a really good representation of the public there. That was really exciting. We also had a hands-on experiment of what is coming for our meetings with how we set parameters on public speaking and commentary and how we deal with people. And I thought that I think her name was Monica. I thought the person leading it was exemplary, and I really want to model a lot of how I lead the meetings and how she did as far as her openness with people commenting and how she was able to organize the room and invite quality feedback and really know how to get good feedback. And I was just really impressed with her. But those of us who are at the meeting, I think these really are going to come in handy, but if we have something else to add, this is a great time to do this. So setting the parameters for our public meetings, and somebody had asked last week, I think it was Kathy had asked last week, is this gonna, no, it wasn't Kathy, it was somebody else. Is this gonna also be for board members? And absolutely, this is board expectations with each other and the community, as well as community expectations as we move through our public meetings. Not just for, like, we talk a lot about deliberative, but it's not just for that. This is for, because we're bringing all of our funding conversations to our public meetings in a format that's online. We want these, this is our expectations going forward. So parameters that we have so far, and we can take things out, we can reword them, that we answer factual, not answering opinion-based, and the board speaks as one. Having questions involving research, such as number of line items in writing. So meaning if a community member or we have a question for our business analyst, when we're dealing with these line items, that we have it in writing, we hand it in writing clearly, so that that person has time to do the research. They're not answering right there. They're not put on the spot. They have time to research that so that we can circle around to it with a quality answer. Ways of addressing misinformation. Correcting after the person's finishing is one thought. So waiting until the person who's saying the misinformation is seated, and then us having that last statement of this is why this is incorrect. But making sure that we do respond to those things, because what we found is that by not responding, we built more confusion for the public as far as, well, is this true? And one thing that I heard, and I wanted to say, but this wasn't my meeting, so it was really nice to sit in that New Hampshire Fair Funding. But the person who speaks the loudest, that doesn't mean they're the truest. Like, just because you're yelling that doesn't mean it's true. And it was so confusing to me. Like, you're shouting this, you're interrupting the speaker, it's just pure rudeness. But that doesn't mean that it's true. And it felt like the public was saying, by us not responding, are we saying that's true? And so we need a way to be able to respond respectfully to misinformation. And that's going to have to be ongoing, right? That's going to have to be stuff we set parameters around, but also that's something we really got to figure out. We have to be able to address disrespectful commentary toward any staff person immediately. That's going to be stopped immediately. And we need to take time to recess if necessary. We also need to set ground rules at the beginning of each meeting. We need people to speak for themselves, not for anyone else. It's not up to the audience who speaks. So as we have people coming up to speak, they can't say, I'm going to cede my time to this person. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. No proxy comments. Allow for differing ideas. Do not permit rudeness or personal attacks. Time limits are to be kept. I'm confused as to, after the meeting on Thursday, I don't know how to not permit rudeness. I would love input on that. So somebody at the meeting yelled out while the speaker was presenting. And it was really rude. And the speaker did a good job of ignoring it and went on. And I think everybody in the public allowed for that piece. Like they allow for that. I don't know how else to deal with that. And I would love input from the people who were there on how do we do that?
Yeah, I know it's difficult. And I think it's a fine line with how to deal with it, because I think unfortunately by being, the right answer is you nip it in the bud, you tell that person they can't speak and, warn them and remove them from the meeting, right? That's probably, we should have a process to do that. And if they are not able to abide by the ground rules of the meeting that we've clearly set forth, they should be removed. That being said, I think you run the risk of taking a person that's already escalated and escalating them further, and then, you know, creating a whole other set of issues. I guess that's kind of my mental calculation when it comes to something like that, is you're taking something that maybe you should just ignore, but if you ignore it, then does that become allowed? Does that become a norm? You know, so it's kind of talking about, I think the right answer is you need to address it immediately and deal with it and be, as we said here, consistent with every meeting and every person. I say that knowing that you run the risk of like creating some sort of issue where you need to get the police involved or something.
There is a trespass process that you can.
Which I don't think any of us.
How anyone wants to do anything now.
So I don't think I answered the question there, but I think I'm
No,
just sharing my thoughts that it's a complicated issue that to me requires some sort of nuance. And I wish it was as simple as saying like, there's your first warning, you know, per the policy. If you speak out again, you know, you'll be asked to leave. It doesn't work with everyone. I don't know.
I think what we saw on Thursday was that the presenter ignored the comments. And so it did not rise. It did not break the flow of the valuable information. I think that if those, and there was value in that, it was ignored. Like a child trying to get attention, they did not get that attention, right? If the behavior continued, then at that point, you have to address it, I think, but I think that the way that it was handled in that situation was effective. The person shouted out and was rude, and then it was ignored, and then we were not disrupted constantly. That's, I guess, my thought. But I don't think they can possibly do it twice.
It all depends on what it is that's shouted, for instance. I think, you know, it's like working with a 6 or 7-year-old who's trying to get attention. If the function of their behavior is attention-seeking behavior or trying to, you know, disrupt, then ignoring for if it's not, you know, trying to threatening, if you're not threatening someone, you know, ignoring, and I don't think that was a threatening comment that was made during that time frame. You know, rude perhaps, but the idea was ignore, don't give the attention, don't feed it. If it continues, then you address it and go on from there. If the conversation or the action is potentially harmful to someone, that's a different story. You don't ignore harmful behaviors. Someone who threatens someone who gets very, you know, insulting of someone or what have you, that's going to cause, that could cause or could lead to, or even just by the actions or of the speaking itself cause harm. You know, you'd have to do that. And then if it's a significant issue, certainly it's that, like you say, you address it and then you go through the progressive discipline process, basically, for reminding adults how to behave. And then if they don't behave, they'll be asked to leave. And if they don't leave, they're trespassing, and then the police get involved. None of us are gonna recess the meeting during that time frame. Yeah.
And my hope would be if we are able to stick with a set of rules and let everyone in the audience know that they're going to have time to speak. Everyone's expected to follow the rules, that maybe the mood of the crowd will help that. If somebody's shouting out and disrupting that, and everybody understands that, hey, there's a process here, you're disrupting the meeting. I don't know. Maybe there will be help from the crowd being like, listen, everyone has 3 minutes. You're kind of ruining this. And to Ruben's point, I think maybe we recess. So it's like, again, maybe one of those tactics looks like, all right, if you want to disrupt, then, you know, you lose the privilege of having the public comment or the meeting
And
even.
I do think the community did that.
Yeah,
I was sitting
for
right
sure.
in front of the guy that did it, and I do feel like the community just the quiet that happened from that allowed the presenter to have their time, and I do believe that there was some peer influence there, that I was pleased with that. Just more respectful, that was really helpful. Is there anything, anybody, yes, John?
I think this discussion has been helpful, and I think things I'm hearing are right on target. The other thing is that the facilitator has really, I mean, for some kind of special grace, because there is no way to guarantee calm down somebody who's very worked up for whatever reason. And in the case of last Thursday night, the facilitator did a really good job when she ignored the first outburst. But fortunately, the person who made the outburst didn't repeat it, at least not right then. Calmed down, and actually, I think the person got up and left the meeting for a while and came back. But then during the presentation period, where he actually was given a microphone to talk, he was allowed to speak for a while. And then as soon as he gave the microphone back and the presenter began to speak, he started again to talk. I don't know that there's any successful way other than to really be graceful and wise, to try to calm that down. I think it is, though, a important thing to try and say there is a standard here. I'm sorry, but you had a chance to speak, and for everyone to be able to participate equally, you now have to listen. But there's no guarantee.
Yeah, I was very impressed with her poise, really was.
I think the other thing, I don't know quite how to word it too, but I don't want to see any sparring amongst the audience members, like one audience member getting into it with another. That discussion should go on. Address us, say what you gotta say, sit down. Don't be addressing everybody else in the crowd.
Yeah, that's social media. That's exactly what's rampant. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just rampant on social media, and let that be the venue for that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So they direct comments to the school board members, not to the audience.
Mhm. Okay. Yep. Right, so do we want to change any of these, or can we just approve these now as written?
Approve as written.
Okay,
Yeah.
do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you,
That's
thank you, Judy. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Sandra. Any further discussion? All right, so we are making a motion to approve the standards for norms and expectations for board discussion. And all in favor?
Bye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Passes 6-0-0. Thank you, everybody. On to our public comments. Thank God they're coming before our 24 articles that we get to vote on next. The New Hampshire School
Here we go. Quick,
Delegation.
I made a list of every single one. And
good.
yay or nay, so
All right, we got this, people. Public comments. Let's put up the screen.
We're in public comments right now.
We're gonna go to public comments now.
Were we,
Yeah.
were we gonna, school board budget guidance, right? Do we consider that complete, or I thought, just going back to the agenda?
Yeah, you're right. We should do we consider that complete right now? I think we're getting more information on the third for staffing. Are there more suggestions that the board wants to simply put out for these conversations?
Let me give you an example so to help out with the conversation. So for instance, over the past decade, the standard that the board has used has been trying to hover around an 17 or 18 to 1 ratio, no more than that in grades, anything 3 and under. More in anything than to be 20, 22 or so, or under in that 4th and 5th. Sometimes we've been up to 25, but we almost probably never have gone, above that, except for maybe maybe one instance, I think, through the course of this time. At the elementary level. There have been some times, like this year, for instance, we've got some high kindergarten classes at Jaffrey Grade School right now, some high numbers. They're pretty big for a group of 5-year-olds. But in general, we have had that be the kind of rule of thumb. Is there a difference, in what the board is really seeking? Do you want to continue on with that approach? Do you want to go with let's say, 15 to 1 ratio, 20 to 1 ratio, 25 to 1 ratio? Is there a ratio of staff, teacher to student anyway? Because our staff at the elementary school, again, who are not the classroom teachers, typically are related to in a person's individual education plan. So that's you look at staff to student ratio, but teacher to student ratio or teacher to learner ratio, what is in the interest of the board at the elementary level? Then we could talk middle and high. So that's a question. That would be something that would be helpful for guidance purposes and putting forth a staffing pattern. Because 75 to 80% of our budget is staffing. There's if we're going to ever make big cuts, it's in those areas, and
Do we have numbers for next year? Will we have another decrease in our student population? Will it stay the same? Is it going up? What are the projected numbers?
The projected numbers are going to be similar. Yeah.
Okay.
Could it go down by 30? Yeah. Could it go up by 30? Maybe. Probably not. I don't think we're projected to go up at all. It all depends. A couple years down the road, when these housing developments down here are put in place, and you may see an increase.
Okay.
But that's barring development, housing developments. I wouldn't think that would happen.
Okay.
I think the people who have, over the years, really more so after COVID, left for some maybe ideological reasons, or to go to charter schools or whatever, those numbers have more or less slowed down. We don't have a lot. We've had people come back because of dissatisfaction of the locations that they've gone, but and then of course with voucher systems, we've had that impact, but not a high impact, because the people who are getting vouchers were all not coming to our schools anyway at this point in time. So, that was happening. So I think we'll hover in the same area.
In line with that, I just wanted to ask real quick, did you see a sharp at all? You're saying you didn't see any kind of a decrease really this
The
year?
sharp decrease this year, not a sharp one. No, there was a decrease. Yes, yeah.
Because we went from
Yeah.
Rinch having the 5th highest at 117 kids the year before, who
Uh-huh.
in Rinch took the voucher, to 187 who
Mhm.
took the voucher this year.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure we didn't drop by 60
We-
kids in our school. So these are going to
We didn't-
homeschoolers.
they're going to other people who, yeah.
187.
But increase in numbers is probably due to increase in eligibility requirements.
The eligibility requirement,
Oh,
the
with
law
the money.
shifted,
No
yes,
eligible-
yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so
Yeah.
it's not like they.
No, I know,
yeah.
it's just, but still no, yeah, it isn't that.
The point is, those who are using those avenues have used them. And so I don't think that's gonna shift too much. And then, which is fine. And then, the only really the items that David talked about, we have people who indicate that they're going to homeschool their kids typically around the time where accountability is being put into place for behaviors. We don't have a lot, it's not, huge numbers of that, but we also have had the increase cost due to juvenile placements and so forth as a result of some of those behaviors in the past, when parents have chosen to take them, and if they homeschool them, fantastic. If they just don't let them come to school, that's a different story. Other things happen as a result. And it costs money. And the schools are partially responsible for that payment.
I guess my thoughts with regard to this and specific guidance, I think my guess is that, I don't know, I guess I'm not going to sit here today and I think you should go to like larger class sizes. I think right out of the bat, I don't think that makes sense. I think what's going to be helpful, and I'll kind of get off topic a bit, but more looking at the financial piece of it, because I mean, I assume that when we go through each school, we're going to see, expected class sizes, here's the teachers, we're going to be able to see that. We're going to be able to see, there's, 23 kids in a JGS kindergarten classroom. We're expecting this many next year. We can do that evaluation. I think, make that decision. I guess what I've seen the last few years is we go through this process, right? We take a look at all this, we feel comfortable with it. We're like, okay, good. We have, we've made some compromises, we've made some cuts, maybe some adds. And then we seem to get to the end of the process and we're like, wow, that's a huge tax impact.
Yeah.
Right. We all feel good about what we've done. We feel it's responsible. And then we see the tax impact and we start cutting until we, as a board, get to something that at least the majority of us feel comfortable presenting. What I think would be helpful, and I don't know if we could get, is to understand. I think you've done a good job so far of explaining, like, listen, we're going to have the headwinds that we have this year, right? We have healthcare, increased costs. We know our contractual obligations. The other ones that I'd like to understand as early in the process as possible are both the state funding portion of it and the expected decrease in the state funding, right? Because that's, again, something that is being provided this year that won't be this year. So essentially an increase to taxpayers, right? So to understand that portion of it, which I expect, if it's like previous years, will be significant, right? Hundreds of thousands of dollars likely. And also that piece of it that's, tricky and something that people have tried to solve, but that Jaffrey Ringe mix, right? Because that ends up being a board discussion where it's like, we're going from 5347 to 5149, and that essentially shifts a big portion of the budget towards Jaffrey or towards Ringe. That fluctuates with the valuations and the student enrollment. I think understanding that up front, well, we might not have the exact numbers, will help kind of guide us. I think having that full view of like really what we're looking at and what the tax impacts are going to be up front, again, because I think, I don't know, people agree with me. I've seen that before where we feel like we're good about things and then we're like, all right, we're done. And then we're like, wow, the tax impact is huge. Let's start cutting. The sooner we can start talking about that and understanding what the tax impact, the better, I guess. Don't know how we do it, but I think it's an important thing to talk about early.
And the 306. I mean, if we're talking about that, we have to reintroduce technology teachers into grade schools or into middle school. It's another unfunded mandate. We use that term a lot here, but we need to know that up front so that we know, okay, so we're already adding positions right off the bat that we just have to add,
Or find an approach to making certain things happen. Yeah.
Right. But
So
I just heard everybody so strapped.
So I do have a priority of not increasing class sizes. That would be incredibly detrimental to not just the staff, but to the students with the sheer amount of need happening. You know, that we have kept these class sizes for years successfully. The strain comes when we have to cut teachers. And so I think the goal would be to be able to try to recoup as many positions specifically at the middle school level. And I would prioritize middle school math tremendously. Because if we can get the math in there, maybe they can even partner with some of the technology. But having middle school science teachers also teaching the math is putting a massive strain, additionally on high class sizes and very little flexibility. So I think having dedicated math teachers, I know they're hard to find, but honestly, I think that should be a priority. John, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're making some good points there, and I agree with them. But I also really appreciate the point that Chris just raised, because there's not much sense in going through a budget process where, we know we're gonna work hard to come up with something, but we also know that at the end, we're gonna look at it and say, oh, it's not gonna work, it's not gonna fly. So having those costs as early as possible, including the two-town split, I think that's a good idea. But also, take a look at what we think the state funding will be. There will be bills out there, they'll be in process. We know that we won't find out until later in the spring, probably after our budgets are all decided what the final contribution is, but I think we should get as much information as we can. So the process is as transparent, not just to the public, but to us. And at the same time, I think we can start communicating to people that these are our choices. We're gonna have a default budget that's far lower than what we are accustomed to. We're likely to have a bigger gap between our proposed budget and our default budget. And that default budget will not include universal or all-day pre-K, and it won't include sports and other activities, and people should be aware of that.
yeah, if we could itemize what would get cut with certain budgets, like give 3 choices or something and make it clear. If you choose this less expensive budget, you're going to lose sports and pre-K, and the class sizes would go up, and try to somehow make it so when people are voting, they can see what they're going to lose if they vote for the cut. Just somehow present it.
And not only when they're voting, but also when they're working in the community. I see these people here tonight. I know how interested they are in what's happening in our schools and our communities. And there have been some groups working together, Jaffrey Ridge, that's been really doing everything they can. So the sooner they have information, people like that who are supporters of the school, the earlier they can start to express their views and consider the dilemma, because it is a dilemma.
Yeah. And I think that dilemma is probably not a strong enough word. If we look at what happened last year, we cut our budget to the previous year and everyone's taxes still went up, right? So let's fast forward a month from now when we're done. So we're not now talking about cutting our budget. We're talking about possibly restoring some things that I think we think are important and implementing contractual obligations and new requirements from Concord, healthcare, all the things we've talked about. So I'll say, we're not there yet, but I'd say it will be difficult to cut our budget again. If we do, it'll be, no sports, less teachers, all of those things. So the tax impact it will be there and it will be significant, and there's a lot of reasons for it. I just think the clearer we are about it as early as possible, it's going to benefit everyone. It's going to benefit us on the board and able to make decisions. It's going to benefit those who are here watching to understand that this is the situation. This is the situation we're in, right? This is the math.
Judy,
Even if
said-
you cut the budget, your taxes are still going up. So
Judy, you had said, is there some way we can kind of more itemize? One way that's possible is through warrant article. We could put things like the pre-K, the athletics. We could put
Yeah.
things into warrant articles
be
and let
great.
people vote for them individually.
That would be great.
That's one way we can do that. And it's an awful way to do it.
It is, but they complain so loudly when you cut them, but they.
Yeah.
And I get it because I'm still waiting to see what my taxes are gonna be after seeing the revaluation on my house. And
Yeah.
I know everybody's just. But yeah, I think. We've got to make a better like demonstration of cause and effect of, what we do lose when we cut the school budget. So.
And that is definitely one.
Yeah, and I think the definition, what's tricky, well, in the communication of this is that when you're cutting a budget and yet when you cut, you still go up from the previous year. And that has to do a lot with contractual obligations, things that have been passed by the community members and so forth already. They get put into the budget for the following year. So automatically you're going up from a dollar standpoint, but yet, and of course, everything else, electricity, propane, things like that. Typically, not always. There have been some years where it's actually gone down. And when we had a flat budget for like 5 years, when I first was here, then COVID changed the dynamics of a lot of things, and things have not even still settled down since then. And we have decreased staff on a continuous basis or reallocated or whatever all the way through. Regardless, costs still continued to go up. And so the idea of like, yeah, you can actually have a higher budget, but you're after significant cuts have occurred. So it's this dilemma that I think is difficult to understand.
So with this in mind, are there any specific things that we would like to propose for budget guidance? Or are we going to wait until, I think we've been we've been giving guidance, maybe not as specific as you guys need, but we've been responding to all of the sessions, the food session and all of them, the athletic session and or the extracurricular. So we've been responding, but is there anything in particular before we close the subject today that somebody wants to recommend besides my strong recommendation, please, to not increase class sizes?
Or cut sports or extracurriculars.
Say it again, Judy.
They shouldn't cut sports or extracurriculars or increase class sizes. I mean, I think everyone in the community felt strongly about that when they were going to be cut. So, somehow to bundle that.
Add athletics and extracurriculars back into the budget.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's the kind of guidance that we need. Yeah. So those are kind of things. I would add all pre-K that we've been able to keep this year. I would add that into the budget in the hopes that we don't have to take it out to put into a warrant article, but I would add that into
I understand and support the whole idea of pre-K. I mean, I know what it does. It takes the kids that aren't getting sufficient intellectual stimulation at an early age and gives it to them, and it changes them for life. So on a moral and ethical, grounds, it's fantastic. But I do also understand that the community is cash strapped. So it's like if money wasn't as tight as it is, I would totally be 100% with keeping that, like no questions asked. But it's just I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do because I know it has lifetime, positive effects for every kid that participates in it. But maybe we can make that point to the community as well.
good input. Yep, I get it. You know, when you look at the minimum standards, it is hard to conscience spending another dime outside of it. You know, and because of the cost. And then you look at Dante and you look at the culture and it's like, we need to put all of our money into this. This is crazy. This is a very, very complicated situation we're in.
Yeah, I think it's,
And you have aging facilities.
yeah. It's difficult, right? Because if you look at like when our numbers come out this year, we're gonna be, I mean, we already were in that bottom 22 percentile. I don't know, we're like 135th out of 160 something in the state. High school is the lowest spending. Our cost per pupil will be amongst the lowest in the state, if not the lowest. And yet, so that tells me that, all these boards across the state are going together, seeing what, an adequate education is and saying that it costs more than that. We're going to be at the very bottom of that. And yet the narrative out there is, among a portion of the community is that out of control spending, wasted money. I don't know how to deal with that. These are requirements that we need to meet. The state, federal government. It's also the right thing to do for your community is to provide a free public education. It's guaranteed. We're going to have I think a tough hill to climb with it. But I think that, again, the sooner we can start communicating this and the reasons why and what we're adding in, and the better. And I think that everything that we put back in with that $1 million, at least as a first cut, should be in this budget. I don't see why we take it out when we just kind of really stuck our necks out to put it back in this year. If it was that important this year to put back in, then it should be in the budget.
Okay. All right, let's move on to the proposed resolutions on Saturday.
Public comments.
Public comment. Oh, sorry, we're getting tired here. Public comment.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Getting tired. All right, policy is up. We have time. We're gonna have the people in the front here be able to talk. If you're gonna speak, you're gonna need to use the microphone, not for amplification, but to be heard online. And just give your name and towns. Anybody want to say anything? Who are you, Kathy?
Just because you were generating all these thoughts in my head, Kathy Kozlowski, Rinch, and what you were talking about, and you were saying, Judy, about getting information out there. I keep thinking about the wonderful newsletters that the schools send out every week. I know the school board has a lot to do, but would they think about doing an attachment to that, a letter from the school board, with information building up to what's coming, even reminders about the meetings, the whole budget process, the importance, just another means of getting the information out there, because obviously this isn't working and that's very sad. That's all.
It's a great idea.
Carleen Woolley, Carleen Walter, that was my maiden name. Ringe. And this is my first school board meeting, so I appreciate being able to attend this. And I know you guys put a lot of your heart and effort into everything. I just had a question about how are you addressing it was kind of shocking to see the healthcare bill that you guys are being stuck with, and the fact that the funds that you had in reserve are now gone because you wanted to keep everything as was. Just wondering how are you going to deal with that? I'm not clear on that.
Yep,
Thank
so
you.
we did address that last week and we voted to, I'll let Ruben give I think you might have the numbers like probably off the top of your head. It was 500, if I'm not mistaken, it's just
585.
585,000 that we owe school care. Just so nauseous at it, by July 1st. And there's no way that we can do that. So we are choosing a vast portion of that to hold off to pay, which will accrue interest. And we have funds left from last year that our lawyers said that we can use toward this. We can only use it to very specific things. And the lawyer said that we can use it toward paying some of it. So I believe it was 145 or 150-ish is going to go from last year's funds that we can.
139,000.
139 will go from that to school care. And then the remainder will be just over 400,000 that we're going to simply not be able to pay. We have until December, so for me, it's cool. But at that point, we still had a little bit of like a couple tens of thousands in that same reserve, and we could have put that into it as well. But with winter coming, and we don't know what this winter is going to do, we thought we might need a little bit of reserve funds. So we're not putting we're not putting every single cent that we have saved, but we're putting a portion of it in,
And we're
and the
still-
remainder,
We are still studying this,
I'm sorry.
and we're still studying this. Well, in other words, to the extent that we did make the move to use the 139,000, that is one thing that we did do concrete. In terms of the remainder, there's a number of options that we
Sure.
have to consider as we get more information.
True, including donations, including state intervention possibilities, including legal action that could be happening against this place, because holy cow, who knows? But yeah, because there's 90 organizations that have been involved, the vast majority school districts that have a massive amount of money that they have to owe right now. So thank you for asking that. And we thought the best course of action was to save what we could. And the interest, should we have to pay that full amount in July, the interest was going to be
Around 12.
5%.
Well, the percentage, yeah.
Percentage,
it's
but it was
about-
like-
comes out to about 12,000,
okay.
15,000,
Okay, so
Extra.
we felt that that was something that we would have leeway for.
which 12 or 15,000, I mean, takes it from 585 to 600,000. So it's a lot. So in the option, there's, one option, and it's going to be discussed during budget season, is putting in the default budget. That's the prudent thing to do while waiting to see if there's any, I mean, it's possible that there could be a surplus at the end. That would only happen if, for instance, hiring weren't able to, hire, or if some of our tuition to other outside schools, came in less than what was anticipated or what we know currently now. We could have funds that could pay it off sooner if it's possible. Then if that happens, that takes away from any chance of being able to retain funds, and you're in that same position for a second year in a row as well.
All right, any further discussion on the floor? Okay, anybody online?
We have one hand raised today, so I'm taking it back. So
All right, let's wait a minute, and if you're online and would like to come back to speak with us, we have time. Okay, just let us know if that happens, okay? Because we like online. All right. Board matters. I think there was one more. Okay. This one out of my head. Ooh, we're getting tired. Okay. I think we all turn into pumpkins after 9:30. New Hampshire School Board proposed resolutions on Saturday. I am going to Concord, I believe, to sit with the other school boards in the state. And we will vote on these proposed resolutions. These are ones to be newly submitted. It will take a total of 3 years for these to be gone through. So this is just the new ones. If you could simply go to the New Hampshire School Board Association recommendations. Let's just go there. They, for number one, they support an alternative resolution. Can we take a look at that one? All right. So I think 3, if not more, of the resolutions we're about to see have to do with reacting to open enrollment legislation. And in all the cases, New Hampshire School Board, while they appreciate that people are very concerned and want to try to mitigate the damage, their stance has always been, we do not approve of open enrollment. And so by allowing any language in their resolutions that allows for some compromise is against what the New Hampshire School Board Association is fighting for. And so all of these, they're saying, no, we don't want to be giving any response of compromise. We believe open enrollment is a mistake. So that's number 13, basically.
I think it's 13, 14, and 15 are all the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, 13, 14, 15.
Yeah.
So let's go for those. What's the board consensus on how you want me to vote when this is brought to me on Saturday?
Support New Hampshire School Board Association.
Okay. Agreement? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Then we have Chesterfield, New Hampshire, okay, there's a proposed resolution. New Hampshire School Board Association has an alternative amended. And they simply want to clarify that they're talking about state public schools and public school districts, not to include private schools in the aid formula conversation. Does the board agree with the Hampshire School Board's clarification on that?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and New Hampshire School Board Association on number 17 does not support Chesterfield's recommendation of limiting directing New Hampshire School Board Association legislative advocacy. So do you approve on that one? This is saying that,
Bundling non-germane amendments in with unrelated bills.
yeah,
That's the only one I don't support for them. I don't think unrelated bills should be bundled together to pass things that are unrelated just because they're trying to manipulate things.
Okay.
But that's the only one I didn't agree with them on, but it's not that big a deal.
it was an interesting one. And truthfully, I don't have to vote on some of these.
Right. That's the only one I was kind of, yeah, but that's okay.
So anybody else's opinion? Charlie already told me he approves all of the New Hampshire School Board Association ones, so I'll take that into consideration. But
Okay.
what's other people's input?
And this is number 17 that.
Yep.
So typically, I would support that position to oppose the inclusion of amendments. But what's your reading on it, Judy?
Just that you see it all the time when you watch, Congress or anything, that like when people are trying to pass something that they, have as their pet project, that sometimes they'll bundle it in with something like, should we stop the government shutdown? I mean, it's
Yeah.
just, stick to the subject. I mean, but that happens in politics all the time. That they group together unrelated bills with important bills that everybody agrees with just to get the pet projects passed. But, it's not the biggest deal, and we're all getting tired. I can hardly think anymore. But I supported all the rest of everything that the New Hampshire School Board Association likes.
Yeah, I did as well.
Opinion on it?
No, I supported all the NHSBA recommendations.
Okay, did anybody, let's move forward. Did anybody have any questions on any of them or any, I don't support New Hampshire?
I put a question mark by 20, but now I feel like I read these so long ago. I can't
Let's stick
remember
with
what 20 is.
Oh, that's Universal Subsidized Meal Program, which they said it was a duplicate of another bill that's already, in the pipeline.
On 20?
Yeah.
Why don't I have a 20? Oh, here you go. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I agree with the rationale.
It's interesting. Because they support that state and federal governments seek and provide viable. Whereas Concord's saying the state.
Yes.
Hmm.
And I don't remember it, so.
I'm okay not voting on it if we're in question.
Well, it's a moot point. I mean, New Hampshire's not gonna pay for all the kids' meals and the federal government may someday, but it's gonna be a long time coming.
Right, and these are resolutions of the New Hampshire School Board Association. This directs their lobbying and how they respond to legislators. We're not setting law. We're not setting any, we are directing how they should talk. So you're directing me on how I should direct them. So if we have question on it that we don't understand background or we don't understand all the pieces of it, we don't have to vote on it. I can simply listen and take notes and come back to you guys with more information, which there's all kinds of amendments that come from the floor. It is kind of fun, actually. So.
You're setting yourself up.
I know.
Yeah, I think I felt the reason that I would agree with the school board on that was that, like, we're trying to do a mandate to the state, like they mandate us to do. We're trying to mandate them back. Yeah, really.
I guess who has power in this one?
Yeah,
All right.
it's not gonna work.
No. So we're good with me voting according to School Board Association, and I'll think about those other two about not voting or we're good. Okay. Thank you guys so much. I think we're good. We have we will have a policy meeting before or just after our after our next meeting. Okay, good. All right. Next meeting will be a big one.
I will be remote.
We will be remote. Okie dokie. Oh, are we offline? Yes, you.
We haven't adjourned.
Great. October 22nd in 2 days is a fall concert. 6:30 PM in the Pratt Auditorium, Conant Middle High School. Presents, I guess it's their band and chorus, I'm sure. Yes, band and chorus. So October 22nd, that's
6:30.
Wednesday at 6:30 in the Pratt. Be there or be square. All right. Cool. I'm glad that poster was up right behind you, Chris. All right. Thank you. We'll take a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, John. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Judy. All in favor? Opposed, abstained, passes 600. Well done, everybody.